All right, I'm starting the live stream. So we're on the internet now to warn everyone.
Everyone behave. We're live.
Penny's gonna be the problem one.
Focus right on.
I am always the problem one. This is the first meeting. We talked about it last meeting.
What was it?
You weren't here to vote again.
That'll teach you, Peter.
Yeah.
I never liked sitting in my back to the. I was on my back in school.
You should have got here earlier.
I know.
Which would you like?
No, all right.
Okay.
Peter, she's just gonna sit here and.
Well, I got these two beside me, so I'm happy.
When you have your surgery?
It'll be sometime the first part of December. I don't know the date.
It's when we leave here tonight. Sure we'll want to schedule.
I don't know, so it's gonna, you know.
December.
I mean, if you could do it before the end
Really
of
disturb
November, it would be,
10 days.
yeah.
That's 10 business days.
Yeah.
Do it by then. We could start anytime.
There we are. So, I'm just trying to upload the account.
Everyone
Now there's two of us.
Well, you're right. We have a follower.
Oh.
I can already see the first close. Wasn't here.
It says 6 o'clock. Greetings. Would you please join me in the pledge allegiance to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, it says here we're to adjourn at 9:40. I think we can keep that time. We'll start with Michael from Waldo Cap. First up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Michael Hallenbeck. I'm a program director of Waldo Community Action Partners. I'm here with Donna Kelly. She's our chief operating officer and president of Waldo Community Action Partners. I'd like to start by saying thank you to the Waldo County Commissioners for supporting the programs of Waldo Community Action Partners in the past for many, many years, for decades. The support that we received from the county commissioners and from the local towns are vital to the programs that we bring to the people of Waldo County. Waldo Community Action Partners is founded for and by the community of Waldo County. And what we do here usually, I want to make sure you all have a letter and an overview of the services that we provide in the area in the last cycle. It looks like you do. I have extra if anyone else. What we do is we run a bunch of programs for the benefit of people in the county, and they all require some kind of a matching fund, some kind of a match to a federal or state program. Some of them a little, some of them a lot. To give you an example, our transportation program public transportation requires 50% of matching funds to access federal funds. So we asked local municipalities and the county for a little help. We typically ask towns for 2.5% of the value of services delivered into the towns. And all county towns have supported us for many, many years. And we're very grateful for that. That way we can continue to deliver services to those who are most needy in our communities. In the past cycle, we delivered $7,512,795 worth of services to the residents of Waldo County. We're seeing a persistent increase in the need in the county, people needing help. Over the previous cycle, that was an increase of $467,810. So we're seeing the need for services continue to rise, and we try to meet it as well as we can. Our request to the Waldo County Commissioners is $5,000. And we greatly appreciate your consideration for this request. You want to add anything?
No, just a grateful appreciation for all the years of support and partnership that we've done. And we continue to try to step up and meet the need and demand. And we're very appreciative of the partnering. Thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions? No questions. Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you.
So, Bill Gillespie from the Firefighters Association.
Chief Gillespie. Chief
Chief
Gillespie.
Gillespie. Honorable Chief this year, right?
Yes, very much so, thank you. So I represent the Waldo County Fire Chiefs Association, Waldo County Firefighters Association, and request $5,000 to assist us with grants for live fire training and all training that we do within the county. This past year, we graduated 20 students to the basic fire school. 6 of those students received grants to assist them in the cost. It costs $250 if you were to send a student out somewhere else for that. About $1,000 worth of hours worth of training. We also did a basic fire officer, which allows anybody that's interested in becoming an officer the ability to take a 40-hour class, often Humane Fire Service Institute as well. We graduated 16 students through that program this year. We've done 4 EVOC, which is emergency vehicle operations, which is required by the Bureau of Labor Standards. We've done 4 of those classes, and we just recently did a pumps class 3 weekends ago. So throughout the year, we coordinate all these trainings at a very reasonable cost. The pumps EVOC is $25 per student, which you can't do that type of training without what we have. The $5,000 that we asked for helps us maintain our burn facility, which we have a actual live fire training facility in Waldo. It actually allows us to do our live fire exercises, which is required by state standard that we have to do at least 1 live fire training exercise. We have a roof prop on that, which allows us to do a 2nd story roof evolution. We're allowed to vent roofs, cut holes, do all the work, search and rescue. Everything is done with this facility. We also have a high angle rescue prop. We have water supply. We have a dry hydrant there that we can go and off the road do all our dry hydrant exercises. We also have a propane prop and car fire extrications. So we get everything done, and it's all done on one site, one facility. Last year, we received a donation of land, an additional half an acre, which brought us up to an acre. So we're working right now on filling that in, and at some point in time in the future, hopefully be able to put a classroom right there on site so that when a person comes to train, they go to one location. We're doing all that through our own funds, where we asked for the $5,000 to help supplement some of the training, but we do a lot on our own through either charging a little bit for a class or giving donations, and the land was a donation. So we're just asking for the $5,000 to continue so we can continue our efforts, and hopefully you folks in your areas are seeing the results of what we're doing.
I have a question. Sure. Before you started putting this thing together,
Yes.
where did they go? Down to Southern Maine to train?
They went all over the place. I have certificates from Bethel, Firefighters traveling as far away as, Sunday River to take classes, Eastern Maine, Western Maine. It used to be that a lot of these counties did their own, or regionalized areas. A lot of people went to Bangor, some people went to Waterville. The last time I took an EVOC class in Waterville was $150 for the weekend. So we tried to do everything in-house now, and when we had the facility 10 years ago, I sat with a group of other fire chiefs to say, why are we sending people out elsewhere when we have the resources through Maine Fire Service Institute? We can get this instructors, we can get the information we need, and we can do it all in-house. If they're not at a burn building, they're at one other fire station. It's either at my fire station or at another fire station, and we do a lot of the PowerPoint presentations, the classroom, but all the live fire and all the actual training takes place at the burn building. That's what we have it for.
So another question, I know you've been active in firemen that have given 20 or 30 years retirement. Can you elaborate a little bit? I know you've been talking with us.
Yeah, I'm actually the chairman of the Length of Service Awards Program, LOSAP, for the state of Maine. It is a retirement program that we're trying to develop for volunteer firefighters. We went to the legislature last year with a $2.5 million budget to try to fund this. What it allows us to do is if a firefighter actually is a member of the department and can at least earn 30 points, and the points are earned by attending trainings, attending meetings, attending calls, the things that we need people to do. The more that they do, the better the contribution they'll get from this retirement program. It's a retention issue. So if I get a member that I'm really struggling to come out and do stuff, if they know they're going to get $700 in a retirement program that's going to be contributed at the end of the year, hopefully it gives them a little bit more encouragement to want to come out and do stuff. So this is the retention thing, to try to keep more people involved. It's a 5-year vested. Once you're vested, it's your money. You can receive it when you're 60 years old as a lump sum retirement program or on a monthly stipend. I have a lot of friends that are firefighters from other states that actually have this program. Walter Morris, one of our instructors, receives a check for $457 a month. He will for 10 years. That's from his years of service in New York, Muncie, New York. So that's what this program is designed to do, is try to get people when they're in the younger years that maybe don't really think about a retirement program, involved in a retirement program. It's really good for self-employed people that don't have the ability to create a retirement program. You can't contribute your own. So the only funding sources is either state funding, municipalities, or county municipal. So those are the 3 funding sources. The pushback that I'm getting from the governor's office right now, and I have a meeting with her on Monday, is the price tag. It's $2 million to fund contributions, because we have about 10,000 fire and EMS providers within the state. And if an average of them made $600 in a retirement, that's about the $2 million price tag. The pushback to them is they want the counties and the local municipalities to fund it. And I'll tell you, I know of a lot of departments that operate off a $10,000 budget. And I will tell you, as a fire chief, with my budget, that's ridiculous. We're out there fundraising to do a job. When was the last time you saw the law enforcement out doing a boot drive to collect money to get bulletproof vests or for bullets? They don't. But we do chicken barbecues. I stand on Route 3 every year with a boot drive to make a couple of $1,000, just try to keep things going. We're past the point, and I've been saying it for at least 10 years. We are dying. I don't know if anybody paid attention to that structure fire the other day, but when we don't have enough people during the day to get a person to go in and look at doing a rescue for a delayed period of time and someone dies, we really have to take a deep look at what we're doing. Because we don't know whether we could have saved that guy. We never had a chance. Because the first 2 people that arrived on scene were pump operators, and they had to try to fight it from the outside, didn't know someone was inside. The first thing I would have done as an interior certified guy would have been get in that building and do a quick primary search. Make sure no one's in there. Well, we don't have anybody trained or qualified to do it. We can't do it. So if the reality that we're going to is we're losing firefighters, we're a dying breed. In 1988, we had 12,000 firefighters in the state of Maine. Currently, we believe we have about 6,000. Half. I went to Portland today, there was no one in the town of Liberty, not one. But I can't live my life based on, I gotta be in town all the time. So we gotta hope that nothing happens, but there's a lot of communities that are like that. We rely on mutual aid, and in that fire, they had to wait for mutual aid to get on scene to get some interior certified people to go in and perform a rescue. And unfortunately, it's too late. So, doesn't have a lot to do with what we're doing, but your individual communities, when your fire department is telling you this is what it costs, generally they're not lying. They don't wanna drive taxes up, they don't wanna do anything like that, but there's a reality of what it costs to run a fire department. And a lot of us are doing it for next to nothing.
Bill, I don't get to see you too often, or I can have a but my concern, full timers,
Yes.
you take a young man, he's 22, 23 years old, he joins the fire department, he's going through all the steps. 7 or 8 years later, he gets transferred to Southern Maine.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a credit system for the training and the time that he had in this town carried over to that town.
It's impossible for us to do. It really is. We've looked at it. The last time I did a firefighter 1-2 class was 5 years ago, and out of that class, I have 3 people that are currently working full-time in career departments. We paid for the process for them to become full-time career firefighters. The difficult thing is, I can't go to that chief and say, I need to recoup my $250. As long as they maintain on my department, I'm satisfied. It's when they don't maintain on my department that I'm not as satisfied. But the problem is it's very difficult to track, and it's very difficult to recoup money from somebody else. Because the fact is if he would have gone to Bangor and got hired, they would have trained him.
Where we're heading down the road is we're gonna have to start paying people to be there, and you take a $40,000-$50,000 paycheck with bennies and all that stuff, probably $60,000.
The average firefighter in the state of Maine, we've already done this survey, is $62,000 with benefits, state retirement, the whole 9 yards. You gotta give them a state retirement. If they become union, there's another whole different avenue there. But right now, we're living off per diem. Town of Liberty has 2 people in the station Monday through Friday for EMS coverage, and then 1 person on weekends. And the 2 towns combined are paying $127,000 a year just to have that. If we didn't, we would have no coverage. We'd have no ambulance. That's unfortunately per diem is where the fire service is going to end up, and it will not be in the very distant future. If we can't turn some of this stuff around, we can't get the younger generation to be a little bit more interested and involved in what's going on in the community.
Provide Searsport firefighters, I believe, or residents outside of Searsport, and vice versa.
At least in Liberty, it's at least the same. I'm a Montville resident, but I'm closer to the Liberty Fire Station than I am to Montville, and that's where I originally went. But I have 7 members on my department of 15 that are Montville residents.
Anybody have questions?
I think the only point, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make to the new members, Brian and Bob, is we started funding and assisting the Firefighters Association back, 4 or 5 years ago?
It was more than that.
Was it? Good Lord, I'm old.
7.
Ouch, yeah.
We're the same age. We've already determined that, so you're all good with that.
But the point being, as a former selectman, I know, just like you folks, one of the first things that ever gets cut in the fire departments is training or anything else. It's just, everything is so expensive. So this is why we've partnered up with the Firefighters Association, which all of your communities participate and utilize, so.
Yeah, well, actually, our problem is not training, it's problem of people willing to be trained.
Yeah.
Because it's firefighter 1, firefighter 2, that's a heck of a commitment.
We don't even do firefighter 1. Firefighter 1 and 2 is a 227-hour class. Put it in perspective.
For a volunteer.
For a volunteer.
Yeah, exactly.
We do what's called a basic fire school, which is the basic mandate by the Bureau of Labor Standards. It gets you certified in interior, car fire, and propane. All avenues, 70 hours. We can do it. We started in the last weekend in February, and we go and we finish it the second week in May, and they're done. They walk off the shelf, ready for us to work with. And a lot of the firefighters that are in your communities are trained to that level.
When we started out, my firefighter 1 was like 40 hours. My EMT was like 120 hours now, I don't know where it is.
I went through a 40-hour rookie school for the city of Portland, and that was it. That was 32 years ago.
Any more questions, Liv?
Bill, what was the cost of just the basic fire school
$250 per student.
and officers?
The officers was 200, and I want to say it was $50 for the books.
Okay.
We didn't. The books are separate. We don't.
Yeah, and the firefighter 1 and 2.
We don't even offer that. But when we did offer it, it was 400.
Do you know what it is now?
We haven't offered it, so I can't tell you what I would charge for it. I'd have to determine how much work goes into, because it's 100 hours on the computer and the rest is hands-on. I'd have to figure out the last time.
So Liberty hasn't sent anybody to firefighter 1, firefighter 2.
I know if you send someone to the firefighter 1, 2 at Maine Fire Service Institute, it was $2,500.
2,500?
2,500, and that was a 50. They did all of their stuff. They went to an academy 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day for 7 days.
Whoa.
That's the firefighter 1 expedited program. And I just don't see the point for what we do and what we see and the amount of work that we have to do. I can't get anybody to commit to that kind of stuff. It's
You
just,
have to take a week off from work.
that's exactly what it was. And it's a career thing. Everybody and I sit on the board for Maine Fire Service Institute, and I go down to the academy. It's career people. People that are gonna do this as a career. They wanna get that, because before anybody will get hired, you have to have your paramedicine and you have to have your 5112. That gets you almost a green light into any full-time career. If you wanna do it as a career, that's great, but your volunteer communities unfortunately cannot afford to fund that training. But that's what's happening.
Do you and your other chiefs in Waldo County have an active plan for recruitment, or you just, everybody wants more and better recruitment, but do you have a plan?
Yeah, obviously LoSAP is one of the plans that we're working on. We also have the Maine Fire Commission, which I sit on that committee also. And we have a 211 number that allows anybody that's interested in joining the fire department, they call 211. They'll take the information and they'll get the chief in your area in touch with you so that you can actually look at joining. We do have a website under the State Fire Marshal's office that's looking at recruiting retention. LoSAP has a website that you can get in contact with that information. We do commercials every once in a while to try to talk about it. Usually when we do that, we partner with Lee Dodge. We did it with Lee Dodge a few years back. But the issue is it costs a lot of money. And with everything, the Maine chiefs have some money, but they can't afford a huge television campaign. The fire marshal's office, unfortunately or unfortunately, the best press that we get is whenever there's a fire. And we talk about the lack of volunteers that we have. And, for me, it was putting up on the marquee, desperate need of help. I got 3 new members. They had no training, but I have 3 new bodies that are showing up that are helping with the work. Hopefully at some point in time we can train them, but it's a year turnaround. If I get someone brand new today, has no training, it's gonna take me a year to get them what they need. And, and it's the cost, $1,500 for a set of gear, radios $400, and then the training. I'm gonna spend a couple of $1,000s on a person and hopefully they stick around.
That's the question right there, because I bet a lot of them drop out. Right?
I can honestly tell you, I put 22 students through the basic fire school in the last 10 years, and I have 2 left.
Wow.
Wow.
It's a
That's not
family
good.
commitment, it's not just the.
And it's
person
not just a
going.
commitment, we're bedroom communities.
It's an
People-
employer commitment.
Yeah, people join the department and then they move away. My hope is that when they get to their new community, they go to the chief and say, I've got these certifications, I'd love to join. At least it's going somewhere, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way.
Anybody else?
Great,
Thank you.
thank you, folks.
Good,
Thank you very much.
presentation.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, could I just make a suggestion? When we have a speaker, maybe come over to the podium here, I think, because then everybody doesn't have to turn around. And I think it could be shifted just a little bit so that most people, all the budget committee wouldn't have to actually turn around. They can turn sideways. Bring it out a little bit, at least, yeah.
To get you chatting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Dana Lindley, food service professional, food systems professional.
All right, you're gonna have to come.
Yeah, you got it.
I get to be the first one to come up and stand at the podium.
Everybody can turn sideways and not backwards.
Yeah, yep. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeannie Lindley. I work for the University of Maine Cooperative Extension here in Waldo County. I'm really pleased to be here with you all to talk to you about our budget. This is my first time around getting to present the budget to you all. Normally, my coworker, Rick Kurzbergen, has had this responsibility. Rick's been with us for about 35-ish years, so he is just going into phased retirement, so this is going to be my new job. And I get to inherit this job in a year where we're asking for a pretty big increase to our budget.
That's why he's not here.
That's why he's not here. So I anticipate that you'll have some questions about that increase. Just a quick overview of what we do in our office. We are the community outreach branch of the university. We have offices in each county that provide information to the public, research-based information from everything from food safety, food preservation, farming, gardening. We run a 4-H program, Master Gardener program. And we have a couple of folks in our office who are there every day answering the phones and kind of sending calls to those of us that do the programming. So we had one of those folks was with us for about 15 years. She stepped down this spring, and we've hired a new person to fill that gap. But the policy that that person had grandfathered along for 15 years didn't come with them. So the university no longer picks up the salary increases. So that now falls to us, and so that's the sort of why there's such a big increase to our budget, is because the university is no longer picking up that salary increase, and the rate at which new hires are coming on is just higher than it was 15 years ago.
Okay, any questions?
These folks haven't seen an increase in years. It's one of those steadfast budgets, so it's obviously.
Just out of curiosity, is because this is related to a salary increase, is the expectation that your budget is going to continue to go up going forward by some incremental level, along with like the other budgets that you've seen?
Yeah, I would say that that's probably accurate. It's not going to be it's not going to be this scale of increase, but certainly the university negotiates some salary increases depending on the class of employee each year. It's usually like 2%. We are absorbing some of the increase in anticipation of this being a pretty, sizable ask. We've written a little bit of this person's salary into a grant that we just got. So that will also only get us through a couple of years. So we did write about, I think, $2,000 worth of their salary into that grant. Try to lessen the blow a little bit.
But yes, I do think that, those, as those steps go up, that will.
Anybody else? Hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Jenny Jurek. Waldo County Soil and Water Budget Review.
Jenny's here.
Yep, 235.
And I'm Andy Reid, I'm the chair of the Waldo County Stormwater Conservation District. Also, and also president of the Maine Association of Conservation Districts. And our request is for $26,000, the same as it was last year and the year before. We try to stay fairly conservative. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And we do work quite closely with the extension.
What do you do, Andy?
Where do I go?
I'm retired.
I know you're good for you.
No, but we handle a lot of towns and do a lot of seminars. And right now we're working with the county unit to try to do a report on all the roads that go around the lake, Unity, Troy, and Vernon. Try to stop the non-source pollution going into the lake through the roads. And we're also working with other communities. And, we're doing it. We got a SIG grant that's part of it is we're mapping different farms and stuff that have invasive species so that we can have a program to eliminate a lot of the invasives. So what we're trying to do is keep the towns and the community and the landscape preserve and protect the water and the soils. As I say, Rick Kurzberg is retiring, and he did an awful lot concerning siltation off the farms and the rivers. Unity has been, this year's probably been the cleanest it's been for a number of years. It's all considered work with the NRCS and soil conservation. We did have the last bass tournament, we had a table up there trying to get the lead out of the sinkers and stuff like that, so that we have a swap program. That'll probably save balloons and the other species from the lead poisoning that's going on. And we work with all towns. We have a philosophy that the towns also pay into the communities and the county. And therefore, we like to work with the towns and have a non-expense for that.
So I can tell you, Unity Pond, also known as Lake Winnicook, depending on what town you live in,
Vernon's the home of Lake Winnicook.
is surrounded by 3 towns, and by usually August, there's like it's murky and
You don't eat
just
the
you
fish.
don't want to yeah.
You wanna go
But
ahead?
this year, and I know they've done a lot of work. Also, Andy's a member of the Friends of Lake Winnicook. They did so much work. Everybody was commenting about how clear the water was.
We helped support a grant for the Unity College through the Lake Association. Put in $150, and they did a complete survey with a drone. They get a grant from the government and to do that, to try to pick out the places on the pond that are causing the pollution. And we're all working in conjunction to try to make this better, make the place a better place. Better county, to work with the whole county. So we're having a meeting, when is it, over this one? December 4th, and that's a meeting where we get a lot of people involved in it. And that's where we put together the amount of monies and the percentages that the NRCS is going to spend in the county, whether it's for the blueberries or forestry, fencing, everything. So that's open to the public. It just got advertised through the state, and that's where we determine basically where the county through the NRCS is going to spend the money. So we're working with the county. Any other questions?
Stream Smart, You must be familiar with that program.
That's
and-
correct.
And wasn't there supposed to be money available through Stream Smart?
It's, I don't know if it's through Stream Smart or, one of the nonprofit agencies. We, the Waldo County Soil Water Conservation, went to 8 towns and I went to the selectmen in the selectmen's meeting and went over that program with them. Every town in the county has, if you go into the website, shows all the culverts they have within the community that make a difference, and whether it's perched or if it's plugged, et cetera. And there is grant money available, but I can't tell you how to get it right now.
Mhm. I have to go on the website.
Yeah, go on the website. And there's also Lake Smart, which we're working on, and what that is trying to get the properties on the lake, you go review them, look at them, and make recommendations. If they pass the test, they get assigned Lake Smart. And what that does is that property does not put siltation into the lake. You know, they've got buffers in the front of the camps and stuff like that. So we're trying to get smart and do the right things. Any other questions?
Good.
And thank you very much for the support that you've given us all these years.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got 3 of my board members here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
1070, Sharon TV, Register of Probate.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, probate court has had an eventful year so far. Some of you may know that Judge Longley retired in June. I introduced Sean Osika. He was appointed as our judge of probate and started July 31st. Doing absolutely wonderful. So, and also, we've moved upstairs, which is why you guys are crammed in here. But we have a nice new space that was renovated, just new paint, new carpeting here and there, but it's been great space for us. Better security for the judge. It's not kind of going through hallways, you know, just to go to the bathroom. It was awkward down here. So we're really happy with the space and very appreciative that the commissioners could make that happen for us. So with that move, the good news is my budget has not changed very much. I did want to ask for a little bit more in our telephone line. When I did the budget in August, it was really unknown what our new telephone system was gonna cost. So I underestimated. So what I'd like to do is ask for $1,250 to be added to my line item for the telephone.
Is that 4315?
Yes,
And what was the total?
I'd like to request $3,300
Total.
total. So even with that request for the increase, that puts my budget up $65 over 2019.
It seems like you've reallocated a little bit, there's more emphasis on professional development.
And I'm sorry, you what?
There's more emphasis here on professional development, travel, conferences.
Yes, with Judge Osika's new position, where he's new to the position, it's expected that he'll want to attend probably more seminars and conferences than Judge Longley had attended, so that's why I put a little bit more in those line items. And the mileage, I'm very active with the Registered Association, and those meetings never happen in Belfast, so I put a couple extra days worth of travel to go to those meetings as well.
Entirely
Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Shuri,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
EMDC.
I'm speaking for EMDC tonight because I'm the chairperson up there this year. I joined the board in 2017, wasn't about 1 or 2 months before we realized we had a terrific problem it had become corrected. SBA had stopped emailing back, the banks were locking the doors when they see you coming, so it wasn't a good scene. We advertised across the country and hired a manager who's done a terrific job. And he trained 600 in the workforce development program this year. We partnered with all across the state with different entities, over in Gardner with the mill complex up in Scott County, up in Mount Market, with the wood chip business. And every time I brought this up to this board, they always said, what are you doing for Waldo County? It's a good question, fair question. We helped an ice cream business go in Waldo County about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. 2 years ago, we bought them 2 ice cream trailers because they wanted to expand the business to concerts and things. Now, Dick Damaris was just telling me the other day, they have sold the business out in Monroe, the building. They're building a new business on Vermont, Dick, over in Sidwood.
Yeah,
And
I see that, it's still got the for sale sign on the property, but until it's signed off, I guess it's.
yeah, I think it's gone through.
Yeah.
But anyway, they got healthy enough to, in these last 4 or 5 years, could do the financing on their own. So that's a business that EMDC played a big part of get going. In Stockton, we're having discussions with the town of Stockton on brownfield grants. They got a school they'd like to do something with. We have a big application in for this fall for brownfield funding. And up in Brooks, we're working with the town on a sewer and water project. So we're finally getting around to doing something substantial in Waldo County. The 4 counties that were involved in, Penobscot pays about $60,000. Hancock, the due is about $8,000. Piscataquis is about $7,000. And I'm asking for $2,500 for Waldo. But it's a very, very well-run operation at the moment and doing fine. Any questions?
I do, and it's, it goes back to the fact that EMDC actually doesn't serve a lot of towns in western Waldo County. The letter says otherwise, but we're covered by the Kennebec Valley Council of Governments. I don't know, is Palermo KB Cog or
No.
what are you guys? Don't know. Brian?
I don't know about Palermo Freedom's KB call.
Okay. And Unity's KB Cog. So, and
Could I just interject there?
Yeah.
That's a choice that you're making, choosing that, but by the state, recognizing, Eastern and Head, for Waldo County, but, and it makes sense that you go with Kennebec, and some of the towns, and that's the choice you made. You pay dues there.
Well, actually,
right?
we've asked EMDC,
Mhm.
and they said no, they don't cover Unity.
Really?
Yes.
Would you like us to cover Unity?
I don't know. I'd have to get approval from the other selectmen.
If you would, you get that approval,
If you
and
can-
see what we can do.
If you can find out, because being a member of KB Cog cost us several $1,000s
Yeah,
a year.
you pay dues there, right?
Right. And my understanding, a lot of the towns that EMDC covers don't necessarily pay for the coverage by EMDC.
So Penny, you're saying this is a duplication of services with KB cog?
No, not for us, because we're not covered by EMDC.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that since we're already paying for the NBC, right? Through the county.
Through the county, yeah.
So you still have local dues on top of that?
We still have dues, and I'm sure Freedom does as well for KB Cog.
And what I mean is that if we were released from KB cog and joined Eastern Maine
Yeah,
Development,
you wouldn't have to pay
there
KB
would be
Cog.
no dues.
That's what we'd have to find out.
And the services would be
The same, I mean, basically, what we get from KB Cog is just the buying power for culverts and salt and.
You know, we've got a lot of technical support
Yeah.
with grant support.
Yeah, and we've had from KB Cog comprehensive planning help, and that sort of thing.
Eastern
So,
Maine Development is a 36-person entity at the moment. And if any of you sitting in this room want help, call me up and we'll get you help. We'll get you a conversation and see what we can do.
Yeah, you and I will talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Peter,
Yeah, in Winterport, we're facing a $15 million secondary wastewater treatment plant. Is that something they can help us with? Right now, we have 300 ratepayers.
Yeah.
And it looks like the cost for the ratepayers is gonna be right around $4 million, and that just keeps climbing. And so is there anything that,
What we need to do is, you raise the issue, we'll get your appointment. I will gladly go with you, and we'll see what we can do for you.
okay,
There's, and one of the things that, like MECAD and Eastern Maine help you do and kind of
Grant
is to
writing.
actually help you write grants
Mhm.
for these. They do a lot of research for grants that will help in a particular thing that a town needs help in.
Mhm.
And it's just like the brownfield. If you need help with, cleanup and stuff, they help you write the brownfield. Lincolnville had the Northern Shores, Northern Borders grant that they helped them write. So there are, but the towns have to ask for that. So that's basically what they're saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
a lot of towns do provide extra funding for EMDC, right?
Yeah.
We don't, right now, we're not.
Yeah.
Does that make a difference, or would you
Well,
prefer,
you know-
I mean, if there's something you could do for us, I think we could do something for you too.
Here's what the deal is right here, to be truthful with you. Penobscot's the main payer, big county, a lot of money. The other two counties, Hancock and Piscataquis, 8 and 7, they pay. If you go along with those figures, it should be about 6 or 7 for Waldo County. That's where it should fall. But in the 2 years that I've been around, most of the attention goes to the counties that contributed more. So I'll gladly take up the case and see what we can do.
Well, I'll discuss it with
Sure.
the company who is currently putting this all together and see if there's something.
It's like in Stockton Springs, the Brownfield grant, they're applying for $600,000 for funding in this fall. You could probably, maybe 30 or 40 could go to that, to Stockton or some other town. But we are organized and got a good reputation now. The Bangor Daily News isn't making a living writing stories about us in the papers, and things are going really well.
are you involved with PERC at all?
No,
Chip process.
Yeah. I read about it.
A long time coming. I hope it keeps going.
Yeah. I think it will.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you very much, Bill. Jeff? Sure.
Evening, folks.
Bring that truck.
I'm sorry,
They want to see the truck.
but I'm here to tell everyone about it.
The December meeting, right?
Right.
Oh.
Continues to be another busy year at the sheriff's office. Never seems to slow down anymore like it used to back decades ago, but hopefully the cold weather will help a little bit with that. We've had a few increases in our budget this year. On the in the contractual services page, you'll see travel expenses are up, and those are almost entirely due to increased ferry terminal fees. We work with the town of Islesboro to help them. We have police coverage out there, and thank goodness we have Fred out there, because if we didn't have Fred, that line would be a lot higher because of those ferry fees. And when we have to go out there in the middle of the night, which we don't often have to do that, but it can cost us upwards of $400 a trip to go out there in the middle of the night for emergency. So that adds up quickly. So I added a couple of thousand more to that line. And as gasoline is another one, it's always hit or miss. We were running a little close back, because we put these budgets back together in August for you folks. We were running a little close, so I added $2,500 to that gasoline budget. Prices seem to have eased up a little bit now, but it's so up and down, you never know. And then you'll see down, there's a big increase in the 4820 line under dues. And we've taken on, we purchased a program this year called Power DMS. And the reason we've done that, we've been engaged in the last couple of years with a complete rewrite of our policies and procedures at the sheriff's office. The reason we're doing that is we had some policies in our policy manual, which is 3 inches thick. There's so many things that we have to be able to handle. I was not comfortable. I'm a 36-year police officer, and I wasn't comfortable with the legal speak and all of that, those policies and procedures. So we actually worked with the commissioners. We hired an attorney, a law firm that specializes in developing policies and procedures and making sure that that the legal language is correct and that the liability levels and things of that sort are correct. So, and as part of that, we bought this computer program. It's called Power DMS, and it basically hooks every sworn officer in the sheriff's office through their laptop computer into this system. So when we put out a new policy or a memo or some kind of a directive, when the deputies go to their cruiser and fire up their computer to start their shift, it comes right up on there that they need to read this policy, sign off on it, and it documents it. So it really covers the county liability-wise, and we can show if we get sued, which we often do, that's part of the cost of doing business in law enforcement. But we can actually show when that particular deputy read that change or read that new policy or read that corrected, some type of memo, and show what he or she read. And that's just one of the features. It's got a lot more features, as most technology does it. It can do more than I'm capable of doing. So that's an increase, and that is almost a $3,000 purchase there. And we put it dues. It's a licensing thing, so I mean, maybe it's not dues, but it just felt like that was an appropriate place to put that. We also have another. We bought or we got grants to buy personal video cameras for the body cameras for the deputies and the detectives. We rolled those out over the past year, and the cameras themselves are a relatively minor expense, but it's the storage of the data that is the huge expense. We got another grant thanks to the chief deputy for a new server, and then part of that processing, because you have to buy licensing agreements for those programs and the software, and it's called Wolfcom. And that is another purchase that's about $1,300 a year. So that kind of accounts for a lot of those. And then our chief deputy went to the National FBI Academy last year. As part of that, it's become professional training, and he is now a member. They have an association of all police executives. So we have new dues there. I haven't attended that myself. We have Rotary dues, National Sheriff's Association. So a lot of professional organizations that we belong to that lend credibility and training, and some free training, or actually a fair amount of free training to the sheriff's office. So that's where those, and then on the under commodities, we've had a few increases. You'll see under line 5375 under training and schools. I've added another 3,000. A couple of reasons there. We can never train our police officers enough. In today's changing world, all you have to do is listen to the news, folks. We've got to keep these deputies and detectives well trained. And again, it goes back, to keep that liability down. But more important is so that they give proper service to the citizens of this county and cutting edge service, and that's what we're trying to do. So we added 3,000 more to that line. And even the training that is provided by the Maine Criminal Justice Academy, the prices keep going up. Now, we have a couple of years ago, we separated out the training academy. We've been averaging at least one deputy. We have turnover in the patrol force, in our law enforcement division. A couple of years ago, we had one of our deputies that was hired by the U.S. Secret Service. We've got another deputy right now. He's in the final stages of becoming a Green Beret with the Army National Guard. If he's successful, and I believe he's going to be, we probably won't see him again because the active Army is going to snatch him up, and I'll be very surprised if they don't. So we have turnover, not for bad reasons, for good reasons. They're bettering themselves, but we end up having to train people. It's now, the price has gone up again at the Maine Criminal Justice Academy. It's now $3,000 to send a new deputy to the basic police academy. But that doesn't count all of the equipment that that officer has to have and all that goes along with that. So, so we raised that cost. Let's see, books and periodicals. So that's pretty much the, and then on the, you'll see in line 5515 under investigative supplies, there's a jump of $1,200 there. And again, we have 3 detectives at the sheriff's office. Those detectives are swamped constantly. So we're looking for ways to maximize their time. Right now, almost all interviews that you do with major crimes or serious crimes have to be recorded, both for audio and video. Well, that has to be transcribed. It takes hours for these right now, the deputies are transcribing that stuff themselves, or the detectives. So when they're doing that, they're not investigating crime, or new cases, or their backlog of cases. They're doing administrative work. So we discovered, our detectives discovered that through their colleagues and other agencies, there's a program, a computer program that they can install where they can basically talk into their a microphone, and the computer program will print a clean copy, or as close to clean as can be. Again, trying to maximize efficiencies and keep these deputies and detectives investigating crime and not typing reports. In our capital outlay, we planned for, we budgeted for 4 vehicles again this year. We have a total fleet in law enforcement division of 27 vehicles. 23 of those are assigned to sworn law enforcement officers. We have 3 spare vehicles, you know, because we've lost what? We've had 2 car deer accidents already this fall. And so when a patrol unit goes down, I've got to replace that. So we have 3 spares that we keep ready for the road. And we have 1 right now that's ready to be traded once we you know, move into the new year. We do have, as we talked quickly before, we ordered a hybrid earlier this year. When did we order that, Matt?
It must have been beginning of the summer.
Yeah, we ordered it. Because we had talked with you folks last year about trying out a hybrid cruiser, trying to save the county some money. We're getting good reports from departments that have bought those. We ordered a Ford Explorer, but unfortunately, I guess they're getting a lot of orders and got back ordered. We thought we'd have it by late summer, and now they're telling us it could be.
It might be. I'm optimistic that it'll be here in a few more weeks. So I really wanted to bring it down and show it off.
I'm hoping
They all want to ride.
Right, that's fine. We'll do it. We'll sell tickets. It should be here. One of the hiccups we had, we purchased this car. A lot of times when we buy a vehicle, you know, we have to wait till we receive it, and then we have to have all the radios and the lights and everything put in. Ford does offer an option to have that done from the factory, and that's been one of our lag times of ordering these cars and waiting for them to get. It takes time. You basically have to take a brand new car, take it apart, and we thought we were going to glean some efficiencies doing it this way, but they got hogged up too. You know, so I spoke with the dealer. Oh shoot, it must have been 4 weeks ago now, and it was slated to be built the week after that, and so we'll see. Looking forward to it. It does a lot of things. I look forward to learning a lot about it and reporting back to you guys. We heard what you said last year. The commissioners heard what you said, and we were able to make it work. So we did order that, and I will keep you posted and watch. Several of the news, local news agencies are interested in it. You may see something on the news because I've promised a couple of reporters some rides and some other stuff. So stay tuned.
So and then on the capital outlay, there is a fairly new development in ballistic vests for officers now. We've been we buy the top rated, obviously. We want these deputies to have the best protection they can have. What I mean by the bulletproof vest is the vest that they wear under their uniform, or now we have external carriers that a lot of them are wearing them over their uniforms. There's a new vest up. The normal vests we've had a high-powered rifle will penetrate them, so they don't do them any good if we've got a sniper somewhere. There is a new ballistic vest that does give It doesn't give protection against all high velocity rifle rounds, but it does a much higher protection and for rifles. But that vest, instead of $900, they cost $1,500. So we normally buy 3 vests a year at our level of manpower. We're able to they have a lifespan of about 5 years. So in that rotation, we can keep new vests going through the patrol force every 5 years. So I did increase. There's an increase there of a couple $1,000s to buy that new. I want to learn the best we can do. So other than that, I can take questions if you folks have any other questions. Those are the pretty much summarize the increases in our budget this year, other than personnel lines.
Amy.
Sheriff, I wondered if you might enlighten this budget committee with regards to, I noticed you don't have additional personnel in your budget this year, but with the state police call sharing going by the wayside.
Yes. We've had a call share agreement with the state police, well, since before I came to the sheriff's office. I was actually still with the state police when we put a lot of those call share agreements together. We're still involved in a call share agreement. We modified that agreement in the spring of 2017 at the request of the state police. I still have a lot of friends on the department. They're changing, things are changing in the state police. The administration, without me going on too long here, they finally figured out they're not getting any more help. I joined the state police in '84. My first day, the chief told us, you're gonna find when you get out on the road, you're shorthanded. We did when we got out on the road after we were trained. But he said, the help's coming, we're gonna get you more help out there. I was there 21 years, that help never came. We were smaller when I retired in '05 than we were when I joined in '84. That trend is continuing. So luckily, the counties have been here to pick up the slack in law enforcement services. So we, as I said, the lieutenant, the troop commander came to me 2 years ago, said that they were focusing in other areas, more in specialties, things of that sort. They wanted to cut back. I consulted with my staff. We were able to modify the call share. So at that time, they were covering about 30% of the calls, 1/3 of the calls. Now, after that agreement was modified, they're covering about 25% or just under 25% of the calls. So they told me at the time that this cutback statewide was coming. It was already in the process. So it has come to fruition. January 1st, they're cutting back in many other areas of the state. We're not affected at this time, but I can tell you from talking with the upper echelon of the state police, calls for service, which are when the public picks up the phone and either dials 911 or dials a non-emergency number, are no longer the priority of the state police. I was surprised to hear that, but things are different. I've been gone 15 years from that agency. But it is very much our priority because we're here to serve the public. So I anticipate the state police are going to continue this pullback. They're not able to get more help through the legislative process. So they're going to focus on their specialties. They're going to continue with the homicide investigations. They're going to continue with crime scene investigations. You're going to have more CSI units out there. They're looking at the interstates. The rumor on the street in the state police is that they're going to bring back the old interstate. There used to be a unit in the state police that was just patrolling the interstates from the southern border all the way to Holton. That's coming back. They're going to pull out of the counties and expand that. So my opinion is, I didn't ask for any personnel this year because we had already renegotiated, and with the level of manpower we had, we were able to handle that change to them cutting back to 25%. But if they cut back any more, we've got to have more personnel at the sheriff's office. So next year, I anticipate asking for 2 additional positions. Now, I can tell you where Matt and I and Jason Trundy, the chief deputy, we're working with the staff to try and decide, do those 2 positions absolutely need to be law enforcement, or do we want to have 1 law enforcement officer and more administrative help? Because as I told you already, the detectives are spending hours typing and reports and interviews. So maybe we can hire an additional administrative assistant who can handle some of that. So we're studying that now. We're creating data, tracking stuff, so we can make some good decisions. At this time next year, I will be asking for two more positions for the sheriff's office. Yes, sir.
Jeff, how much advance notice would you get from the state police about pulling out? When would they pull out completely?
Well, I think it depends. I still have a close relationship with a lot of the leadership in the state police, but of course that changes as time goes on. You get the newer kids taking over.
Kids.
They are. But right now, I still have enough contact. So, you know, he came to me 2 years ago, in 2017, because he knew this was coming, and we worked this out. So this latest publicity and changes in the state police has caused so much angst among some sheriffs. Didn't affect us here because
you had a good relationship.
Because we
Someone
knew
knew
about
about
it. So, but I can tell you that. So I think we'll have some notice. But I think we need to plan ahead for it. So the next big pullback, we're at 25% now. When they pull back next time, there'll be no patrol force. They'll beef up their efforts in the way they'll sell it. We'll provide you crime scene investigations. We'll provide you, you know, with mapping for fatal crashes and a lot of that stuff they help us with now. They handle homicides anyway. But the picking up the phone, answering a complaint, and going out to a domestic or going out to a Facebook harassment or a property line dispute, all the things that we handle, they're moving away from that. And, we need to continue to be ready to pick that slack up.
I think just as a follow-up to that, Hancock was one of the affected counties. I think in the letter that they received from the leadership in the state police, I think they were given a 60-day window.
And Washington County, I know,
Washington
was one of the counties that it was like dropped on.
It was
60 days after their budget was approved.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something that, it would be foolish not to at least plan ahead for that. You know, like with a computer program, the sheriff, this talk to text program, it's a different job than when I started 23 years ago. You know, there's a lot more administrative tasks that need to be accomplished. You know, there may be some way and that may be a more fiscally responsible way to get some of the manpower. We could reallocate the time that have the police officers doing police work and have administrative staff doing administrative work. It may make sense, but we're working on collecting the data. So.
Yeah, just to give you an example, the new body cameras that we deployed last year, to come into the office and for the deputies to download, they have to go in, they have to download it, then they have to pare through it and get just the data that they need or the video they need for a case. That can easily tie up a deputy, a road deputy who's responsible for covering accidents and domestics and all that, can be stuck in the office doing that for 1 to 2 hours for an OUI case or a long investigation. So that takes a lot of time. We currently have 2 administrative assistants, but one of them, those administrative assistants, does almost completely civil process. We serve nearly 2,000 sets of papers a year. We have 2 civil deputies in that division, and she pretty much handles that. The other administrative assistant handles some jail work for the corrections division, not as much as she used to, but a lot of that. She handles all the bookkeeping as far as all the bills, and I sign bills every day for the sheriff's office that she has to track. She handles training records. She handles all of our, she keeps spreadsheets on all of our financial records on top of that, correspondence. It goes on and on. So I have them tracking, we're doing an analysis of their job task to see what their hours are, to see if they can take on any more to relieve the deputies and detectives. But I can tell you that we're there every day, and as busy as they are, they don't have a lot of discretionary time to be taking on some of these other duties, so we can get more law enforcement on the streets.
How long is the body cam footage stored, and is it stored, I guess, is it stored in the cloud or just on the 24 terabytes?
It's on the server. We have a server where it's stored, and part of what they have, it takes time. They have to go in when they download that, and they only need to keep if it's related to a case. If it's not related to a case, they can dump it or delete it.
We do maintain it for a short amount of time. Basically, they have 3 choices when they're downloading it. There's if we identify something that needs to be saved in perpetuity, we'll put it in that file, which is very few of them. Then we have it's a 7-year, which is for criminal matters, and then we have, I think it's just random, like hey, I ran into you because they're supposed to record all their interaction. We're just talking in the lobby, you had some questions about dog laws. That would be saved for like 90 days, or I think it's 90, and then we get rid of it. The forever file and the 7-year file will probably remain intact once we start identifying how much space we're using. We may have to revisit the length of time that we're saving the other, but we just don't want to fill it up. I don't want to end up with a room full of 27 servers full of, unnecessarily.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, it's stored on a RAID 5 and then on another backup as well, or how's that?
There is a backup system, and Jason is not here. He's a little bit more familiar with that. I don't know if Dale knows anything, because I know did we get the original one through some grant funding? Do you know what?
Law enforcement terrorism prevention program.
Yeah. So whether it's in conjunction with that, I would assume it's a similar thing. We generally have redundant systems, or we always have. I can't imagine this would be any different, but I'm just not that.
I know our Spellman system has four RAID backup on the Spellman system, right? So I'm assuming that this system is not connected to Spellman, but it's, I believe we do have some backup protection.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Who decides who the school resource officer is for Mountfield?
We do that, and we work with the school on deciding who we're going to assign up there. Jordan Tozier is our current school resource officer at the Mountfield Complex for all of RSU3. When he's been there about 4 or 5 years now. I think he's in his actual 5th year. When it came time we had our former school resource officer was promoted to sergeant, is now a patrol sergeant, so we had to replace him. And like I said, we put it out to the existing deputies, and I think we had 2 or 3 that applied. And when we do the interviews, we do them along with school staff, and we make a joint determination as to who's the best person for the job, which is how we get it in Jordan.
And was he also recently promoted to detective?
Yes. One of the reasons, being a school resource officer, it's much different. Like everything in law enforcement, it's changed a lot in the 20+ years, because I was trained as a school resource officer. So in order to make that position more attractive, one of the things we wanted to do was recognize the additional requirements and the knowledge needed to be a resource officer. To certify, you have to get certified. So we looked at, and then on top of that, because a lot of serious cases are generated out of that school and out of that position that need more expertise in the fields of investigation, more than a patrol officer can handle. So putting those together, we were able to we promoted him to detective. The school resource officer is at a rank of detective now, and to recognize that extra work, extra training, and the fact that they're doing a lot of detective work while they're there. So and then in the summer, when school's not in session, he comes in and augments the detective division, because our 3 detectives folks is not enough. We need more. But this was a way that we looked at efficiencies. And so for at least a couple months in the summer, we have an additional detective. And then even during the year, if there's school vacation, if we have a detective we've had a detective with some medical issues recently, Jordan is able to fill in some of that open time that we need that detective backup. So that's the thought processes we put into that decision.
So I have a follow-up question for the commissioners. When we receive compensation from the computer crimes task force and from RSG3 for the SRU, what happens to those monies? Is that put in the general fund, or does that offset? Because I'm looking at $100,000 that we're getting reimbursed for, and which would be more than enough to cover the increase in this year's sheriff's budget.
Very good. Ms. Karen,
we bill out the school for his salary and his benefits. He's paid out of the detail reserve, and the money goes back into that reserve. So when you look at the budget, part of his budget isn't It shouldn't be totaled at the bottom. Because you're only paying for maybe a quarter of his salary out of this budget.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So basically, you're putting it in a designated account, right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
Revenues go in a designated
Yes,
account.
and we pay out, it goes
For this
back in.
purpose. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, if you look at that, like.
And if you look down below on that page, you're gonna see reimbursement SRO of, it's 39,900 of his salary is deducted out of that column. And the remainder of it is in the bottom line.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but when we were at the school budget meeting, when was that, this spring?
Lord, okay.
Wasn't the school, because we looked at it hard, and it seems like it was a lot more than the 39,000.
It is. They also fund a percentage of his vehicle. They fund a percentage of some of his
They
equipment.
do, there's a percentage, a breakdown of
the
the
contract.
Yeah, all the piece of equipment is computer, IT costs, the vehicle costs.
And that's billed out of the detail account and put back in.
So I don't know, without having those numbers in front of me, so for argument's sake, the school pays 2/3 because he's there 2/3 of the time, but it's also inclusive of his entire benefits line. So, and I don't know, because what you don't see in ours, because our benefits are different than the commissioner's budget. So you're seeing a straight up salary in our line, so it's hard to put that with the school budget line because the school budget, they get billed for the whole lump sum.
Right.
So that's why it looks so egregious, I think.
Yeah, I think it was like 62,000.
Sure, so probably like if you added up all of his cruiser costs, fuel costs, uniform costs, computers,
Health insurance,
guns,
everything.
health insurance, and then
Professional dues.
yeah, and all that stuff. If you subtracted out all of that stuff from his salary from the school, then it would be 2/3 of what that number is, if that makes sense. We just, actually, one of Michelle at our office sends the school a bill every 2 weeks. And they pay it to the detail account. It's the same thing. Now, Jason's is a little different. Bosco's, that is entirely reimbursed, and they provide him a vehicle. So if you add up our total personnel line, it will be minus whatever those red numbers are in there. So it's not like it's the true extra. We're paying it out, I guess, is what I'm saying. It's just what we didn't. It's not part of our bottom line.
So can I clarify this one more time? So basically, you take the lump of this school resource officer's expense to the county, all the expenses to maintain and support this person.
Yes.
And that all of those expenses are prorated.
The only part that's not is the FICA and the main PERS. That comes out of the benefits one. Everything else goes through the detail account. So when we get reimbursed, that portion goes back to the general fund, which is included in the revenue miscellaneous line. And it's deducted from the total budget when we assess out the taxes.
Okay, but the county picks up 100% of the FICA. and
Yes.
retirement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's so hard to keep that just separate from everybody else to do just in one account. But most of it goes in and out of the detail so that it's not in the budget.
Anybody else? There appears none. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you, folks. Thank you.
Aren't they supposed to bribe you?
Happy birthday.
Thanks. Before we call the next person up, I do want to say that our budget as presented to us is up over 7.75%. That's one of the highest that I can remember in quite a few years. And we're taking a look at it, see what's justified, see what can be moved. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but 7.75% is not something that goes down very easy.
Do you know what it was last year?
Could I speak to that, Dick?
Yeah, what was, could you answer this question first? What was it last year? Do you remember, Karen, do you remember?
I'll look that right up.
And I'm not counting the jail in there. The jail brought it down,
Yeah.
which it naturally does. I'm talking about the county. But
Yeah.
Give me just a second. I'm pulling up last year's.
So if we say it's 3.5 last year, keep in mind, we lost $100,000 across the street. We used to get revenue from the state. When they moved into no courthouse, it was $100,000. The other $100,000 is health insurance. Had a heavy year, we got to replenish the fund. There's $200,000, that's 2%, get off the top.
Understand that, but I'm just saying that we are
Yeah.
up 7.75%. And we're the ones that are going to present it to the towns. When we make the final vote, after our next meeting.
We should increase that, ballistic
Just,
vest.
you said, how much the employee benefits, Rob? It's 200,000. I mean, in
We used,
the 2020 budget, you're looking for 200,000 more.
we used to add
No, I'm just saying.
840, and that's the line, Peter, and this year we had to add 940. So it's still $60,000 under millions. And I think Belfast benefits is $1.5 million for less people out in the.
Yeah, no, I was just, I thought you said 100,000 that you looked at.
Yeah, but it went from 840 to 940.
One thing I heard tonight was we keep 3 cruisers for spares. I don't know, in the past, we have chopped one off. I think we're kind of on hard times as far as dealing with that 7.75%.
That's something he's looking at the county.
Well, that's something we have to decide.
Right.
And that's something you can
So
take
he
around,
doesn't want to know
but remember also, we have 2 cruisers right now that are out of commission from accidents, so.
I know where one is.
Okay, I was thinking.
That'll be fixed back on the rest.
As a matter of fact, the meat in our dinner tonight. Oh.
You're right.
Value sign.
We get.
Yes, it does under grant writing, but we didn't have grant writing.
I know.
Let's go with Julie Howard, Deputy Register of Deeds.
I don't know.
See, you're here.
She's actually sick tonight,
She is
yes,
sick.
I'm sorry.
Anybody?
She had a replacement that she was going to send her deputy, and that's who's sick, and the register is at a register's convention, so.
Which
But
is
she has her
February.
cell phone, and she said if anyone wants to call her.
The registry
I
of
can call it.
deeds, the increase that you see is 1.61, which basically speaks personnel for the most part. Registry of deeds is,
What I was gonna say, I think we could pass over, we got another meeting, there's something.
that's,
It went up to $2.
the registry is one of those places that makes money for us, so.
Well, believe it or not, we're 10 minutes ahead of ourselves for a
That's
break.
good.
Oh my God, let's do a quick break.
Oh, a 10-minute break, 15 minutes?
10.
10 sounds good.
I'm gonna mute the mic. We'll keep it running.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Amy, I'm not walking.
Barb, do you have last year's?
A lot of it should never be crossed. Yeah, so I know, I understand that, but I'm just saying, you know, we have a small police force. We have a part-time police
Penny, can you
force.
talk in that mic? I just want to see if I can hear it.
Well, they're not all private. Don't misunderstand. But like.
Go again.
Okay, Thursday.
Yeah, right.
You make the arrest. It's up to them what they want to do with it. Now, you can say, I know, I believe it. I'm right. The only problem is, but if you know, I just say, look, it's the law. It's not supposed to be so. But then it's dropped.
Right behind you, which-
Okay, maybe, or maybe
They
the
do a
law
lot
should just
with-
be flexible
put
enough. So
out
that we have
right.
a situation really warrants.
I know, like
They're
Monroe, Constitution
They have
sounds.
the authority to do it. I think so. A lot of those things are pretty hard to-
We got some new
Say,
air
this
packs.
is the rule.
Yeah,
that's true.
60 over 60,000.
That's good. Common sense.
Ours was able to get, well, that's another question. I mean, you can certainly.
You can't do that, can you?
I don't think I
can't do
Yeah, yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Well, they're telling
By
us
the
that
way,
they,
you
on the
know,
ladder
just-
truck, they have to do
We
the UL
dedicated.
testing yearly now, that's like $5,000.
You know, every.
And it's been out of service for almost a year now. I know. Capacity when we take a ladder truck. Yeah.
Do you have full-time employees? It's all volunteer.
No, they're not volunteer.
They're fine.
They are, but they aren't. So they're volunteer, they're not training, but they're paid per day.
Down that way.
So they're paid for their hours.
By the hour, how much?
Well,
Yeah. and then-
We're at 10:50.
They have to show up at some of the actions.
well, a lot of ours are college students too. So one
Yeah,
of the things
because
that they do to recruit
she,
is, like, by the time they're seniors, they'll pay for their firefighter ones.
she was the best thing we had there. Yeah, strong. Yeah, I know. Oh. Well, if I work with you, Buck, since.
Yeah, ours gets 25.
She take the job.
Oh, yeah, yeah, hours do a lot of.
Very good.
I mean, I know we have a zero thing going on.
Just about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But she made a lot of good changes.
Yeah,
She was very different.
It's quite something.
Good night, get out there. You were in school. I can. We had a good one. Anyway. The people today.
Yeah.
What changed. Enthusiasm.
No, get your own.
Some people thought she was too aggressive.
So Amy, you're
We
pretty
had one
good.
select.
You made it,
She labored all day long.
No, but the sad part is it was after the reentry guys had gotten here.
Oh,
I said something about a cake and they're like, oh, we could have made that.
Isn't that great cake though, huh?
But it is, it's really good cake.
Yeah.
Take a piece of cake when you leave, guys.
Yeah, because I can't, one of my cousins made me
Oh, no,
a
that doesn't
free
matter.
German chocolate with
Oh,
coconut
so
and
not-
frosting.
Bring it with
I
you
gave-
next time.
I gave half of it away last night.
Delicious.
But then I had made apple crisp the day before, so I still have half a pan of that left. I'm like,
He makes a wonderful apple crisp out of root privilege. You ever hear that apple?
no.
That's rolled apple, right?
No, verbal,
Yeah, good apple. Root privilege.
Yeah, big.
Yeah, have every round.
Yeah, I got some.
Is there water?
Yes, there is.
Oh, Josh, you're the best. After this last bite of frosting.
I know he does, yeah. You know, when I saw that on the paper, I'm
Yeah,
like,
I'm thinking of just picking.
Did you find it? Was it that amount?
No.
Yeah, the thing is,
well, I
so it went into the final budget.
This is the last day of deals, but I'm
And
gonna pass it.
thank you.
Yeah.
You just.
You didn't say thank you to Josh.
Yeah.
That's approved by budget.
I was talking to you about
Really?
stealing my pen. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what does it say in right, so 7.71, he's not looking at the jail always lowers it, he's looking at.
It's the most exciting thing that's meeting.
That was that first one.
Yeah, I told him.
Yeah.
I told him that
Somebody else said it's more to the story.
Yeah, because I wouldn't.
Well, we don't have,
Yeah, that's where I found.
we could.
Yep.
No,
Nope, nope.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So it's looking just like this.
Right, yeah.
Even though there's nothing. See, that's how we hear it.
As of right now, and somebody goes.
When they first
That's all it was.
that's what's.
Yeah.
I said, he's left.
Yes, and then they get, but the point is,
It goes back.
but these ones, that's one of those ones. And by looking at it.
Yeah.
There's nothing, you don't see.
My whole life.
That might be exactly what something.
Their,
Yeah. Yeah, well, so-
Waterville, Waterville area.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
Providing
I should have pulled this down here. But I don't think this year's is doing that, is it? I don't think it is. I didn't notice those.
Right down the street.
Oh, wait, that's pretty nice.
Solar farms coming in.
725, percentage.
Three stands on my.
Yeah, we've got none of those in this year.
Oh.
No, this year's is looking good, Barb.
That's all right.
If you're in a good spot, see, I'm still.
It's,
I'll be here.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Yeah, my luck, I built one of those spaces.
So I got my new machine.
Good value.
The other one, I told the washing machine.
Ready to start?
Yeah.
Ready to start?
Next up, Hale, you got it.
Only from emergency management. I put a sheet, there was a question that come up for our plan, or I put a sheet out for everybody for information, so I'll go over that in a moment. My budget, the commodities and contracts basically balance out, so I have a zero increase. One's up $500, the other one's down $500. So for those two, the non-personnel items, it's all zero. There's no increase there. All of my increase comes from staffing. For the two full-time positions, it's just the cost of living allowance for this year. That makes up the increase for that. Where most of the increase comes from is my plan. And it's a 24-hour-a-week job, 48 hours out of a pay period. As you see, it's a lot that he actually accomplishes. I've got a really, really good person in that role. If anybody knows Rob Hoy from Searsmont, he does GIS, he does all of our hazmat planning and organizations for the help of the local emergency planning community, the LPC. He's also an amateur radio operator, and he's technically oriented, so he fixes radios and works radios. So he's got a huge skill set. We've got a real treasure there. How he was funded in the past was basically a third county, a third hazmat, and a third homeland security. The hazmat has not been going up at all, so every time there's a cost of living allowance or whatever, it doesn't take that into account, so I can fund a little bit lesser time each year out of the hazmat budget. And the homeland security budget has been shrinking. Back when I first started this job, the state was getting 27 million. It was a competitive process. I'll keep my own horn, but I do a pretty good job at running a grant package. And so we were getting some years we were getting over $500,000 in the treasurer at that time.
We had to have two audits.
They would get mad at me because I was forcing a second audit because we were getting in so much grant money. But that Homeland Security money has shrunk from 27 million to 2.7 million. So 90% of it's gone away. And the state hasn't made it competitive anymore. They just give each county a lot. So I can't, whereas I used to get more than my share, I don't anymore. I get my share out of that. What we're doing with some of that Homeland Security monies this year coming up is we want to try to help out some of the town emergency operations centers. And I've been out to some of the towns to do an EOC assessment to see where your needs and requirements are. I can pay for that out of Homeland Security. I can't pay for it out of Emergency Management Performance Grant, which is where I'm looking to put most of this guy's time is under the Emergency Management Performance Grant. 50% of his salary will get reimbursed by the Emergency Management Performance Grant. And same as my salary and my deputy director salary and my entire budget for that matter, county budget is matched 50-50 with under this Emergency Management Performance Grant. So whatever you budget for us, we get half of it back under that Emergency Management Performance Grant. Homeland Security is 100%. We don't put any money into that. But this year, what we're trying to do with some of that money is help out the towns and their emergency operations centers, and to help out the schools. Where right now we're doing a lot of. We have formed a Waldo County School Safety Task Force. It was originally made up of RSU 371 and Searsburg District. 20, thank you. I keep wanting to say 34. They stopped changing the numbers on us. But we've now added in Northport, and it looks like we may add in
some other schools too. But we've gone with a standardized plan for all the schools. They all have the exact same format, the same terminology, the same general procedures. Things will differ on personnel and some items from one district to another and from one school building to another. But we're looking to try to standardize the cost, and we've made huge gains in that area. But one of the things we're working on now is emergency communications for the schools. And actually, I used the Leroy H. Smith School as a test case on that one. We're looking to try to get radios in all the classrooms, radio at the school that can communicate with the fire department, with the classrooms, with the comm center, and out also, and with public safety when they show up. So we're looking at different ways of funding that. I have budgeted a portion of our Homeland Security monies to help out the schools with just planning and with the communications assets. And so to do that, I basically had to move more of my guys' time under the Emergency Management Performance Grant as opposed to the Homeland Security. And in doing so, of course, it's going to cost more. Now, of that about $7,200 increase, $3,600 of that comes back in the Emergency Management Performance Grant. So the actual increase is only half of that amount. My entire budget this year is up about $9,200. We'll get $4,600 reimbursement on that. So but real budget is only up, what we end up with at the end. It's about $4,600. We have, I guess I'll go over the planner thing a little bit. What I've got on the sheet that's got our emblem on that side is some of the ongoing efforts that we've done for GIS. And that's probably half to 2/3 of his duties right now is geographic information systems. Ongoing efforts, and then projects that we've done. He's done everything from, I should say, hydraulic analysis of the Lake St. George Dam if there was a failure out in Liberty. Provided hurricane storm surge maps from everything from Winterport to Lincolnville, down the coast. We've got hurricane maps that he's done up. It actually shows, you can identify which property is threatened by a hurricane storm surge. The state thought that we had 6,000 people in the storm surge area. When we did our analysis, we came up with 60.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Because they didn't do anything as detailed as what our guy was able to concentrate on. They're doing the whole state, it's not as detailed. We have a guy that's locally, that's going to help us in evacuations and in shelters and all that type of thing. We know we don't have to have enough shelters for 6,000 people, and therefore increasing costs elsewhere. We can concentrate on other things. Landing flight zones, hazmat facilities. We've been working with, we work quite extensively with Penobscot and Crum, for example, here in Belfast on mapping out their hazards. We've provided maps to all the fire departments and county EOCs, and we have a nice plotter up there that I got under a grant that we can print off 4-foot wide maps for any of the towns that need them for emergency services and those type of things. Does anybody have any questions?
You mentioned emergency plans for schools. How does that work? You mentioned all these schools, but you didn't mention anything about RSU 12 and Claremont.
Yeah, a little bit of touchy on the schools that the superintendents are sitting in another county.
Yeah.
I have the same situation with Winterport. I can do some stuff, but I can't encompass everything because their superintendent sits in Penobscot County.
Yeah.
And yours sits, over in, I don't know if it was Kennebec or Lincoln or.
Lincoln, probably.
Yeah, really.
Where is it?
Probably Lincoln.
Maybe it's in Ibbot's Gore. I don't know.
Maybe.
And then at one time we had the same problem up in Burnham when it was part of Pittsfield, but of course they don't even have a school anymore. And we've now also been talking with folks out in Alsboro too about their school. Northport jumped up and said, "Oh, please include us," because they're sending half their kids to Belfast, and they want to make sure that it's an agreement. We've come up with preparedness plans, response plans, classroom procedures, comm plans, training plans, exercise plans, all kinds of whole series of plans that we've been able to put together. And right now we're working on coming up with training classes, especially along the lines of active shooter type training. And it's been, because the schools have kind of done it on their own, they only have 2 people need to go to a class. Well, then they're struggling trying to find a class to get those folks to. If we do it on a countywide basis, we can host a class, bring an instructor in, and cover, all the requirements in the county. Kind of like what Bill was saying with the firefighting, we're kind of doing with the school and law enforcement and fire, police, and EMS. Which is what kind of EMA does. It kind of ties everybody together. And we kind of do those things that each one of those silos doesn't do on their own.
So should I look to our superintendent at RSU 12 and say, what are you doing with your emergency
Sure,
plan?
and if they want to come our way, we'll invite them to come. We've invited and had contacts over the years with the principal from Palermo. Right now, we don't have a good connection. It just, as staff changes, then
It's just new principal.
trying to reestablish relationships. And, but yeah, the outlying, or the superintendents in another county makes it hard. I'm trying, when it comes to Winterport School, I'm hoping to get with, when I was got EMA director, get the 2 of us to show up with the superintendent's office in Camden and see if we can go knock on the door.
Bob, do you know the principal in?
I could find her name. I don't know her name.
We have her name, but, and I
I
have
just didn't know
contact
if we had a
information.
connection.
Pardon?
I didn't know if we could get a connection.
Yeah, we could.
Until you have a face-to-face relationship, I can email somebody and they're like, who's this person?
Yeah,
You know,
delete.
Don't I know?
Oops. Now Dale knows.
But one of the really successful things that we've been going on is, and we just did it during the night in Palermo, was the EOC assessments, getting out to all the towns, and talking about how we can help out in the town for emergency operations center. So we've been to Brooks, Freedom. We're scheduling time to go up to Alsboro. We've done Jackson, Knox, Liberty. We're on the schedule to go up to Lincolnville, Montville, Laurel. We've been to Palermo, Searsmont, and Searsport. We've either been to or scheduled at this point. And I keep pestering the local directors, please set up a time for me to come, so I can come out and take a look. And this assessment that I'm doing, as you can attest, isn't like a graded type thing. It isn't like a night inspector general coming in. It's where can we help you with, areas. And it's not just all equipment and supplies. It might be policies and plans and procedures and those type of things that we can help out.
Gives you a baseline to start working.
Right. We just went through those 2 windstorms / power outages in October and on Halloween night. And we are getting so reliant on the electrical grid. And it's getting so fragile. And I think you're going to be seeing a lot more of those. And you're going to be seeing at some point in time another ice storm in 98 type scenario where we're out for 2-3 weeks. And so we're really trying to do a lot to prepare for that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Dale. In my opinion, we have way too many trees around our power lines, and that's why we have so many power outages. It's not because we necessarily have more storms, but there are so many more trees.
Yes. And
fewer
one of the problems
farms.
that we've had, one problem that the power companies have had, and we've had to deal with, is back in, I want to say, 7 or 8 years ago, they actually did a pretty good job going around the county trimming stuff back. But they can only trim inside their right away.
Their zone, yeah.
Inside of their right away. Well, the 17 windstorm brought a lot of trees down that were outside of the right of way, down across the lines. And they're not allowed to touch those trees. And even some of the trees that are in the right way, when that tree truck shows up, the people come running out of their house and say, "Don't you dare cut my trees!"
Right, but there's got to be a happy medium, because this is ridiculous. It really is. And I know property owners, I suppose you can't make them cut their trees back, but really we can't. I mean, there's got to be something that could be done.
One thing that I did when I lived in Thorndike was, and I had lines that went up through the woods to my house, was I would have CMP come in and they would actually lay the line right on the ground for me. And then I'd go and start cutting that line out back quite a bit, including cutting some big trees down, which I use for firewood. And then they'd come back at the end of the day, put the line back up. They didn't charge anything. So that's a program they have for landowners that they're willing to de-energize, make it safe and everything else for you to do that clearing if you want on your own. especially if it's, up to your house. But just, the general population believes that disasters don't happen to them. And when they do happen, they're like, I can't believe it happened. And then when it's over with, they go, oh, God, that'll never happen again. So it's this constant battle. But we've been building some really great relationships with power companies. I didn't even have a relationship until 2 years ago with the Mayor of Maine, for example. And then during this past storm, I was working issues up on the Baker Road with the Mayor of Maine. And we just had a big tabletop exercise with Central Maine Power the other day. And Central Maine Power actually now will put a person in our EOC to help coordinate the response. And I took advantage of that during that Halloween storm. I actually had a CMP person in my office. Now it's just a matter of getting the folks in the field, the firefighters and whatnot, to call me with their information. I'm getting frustrated because I hear somebody on the line saying, we've been standing on the radio. Oh, we've been standing away for 8 hours. Like, that's the first I've heard about it. But they call the comm center. Well, the comm center is going to handle it when it's a thunderstorm. But when it's a windstorm like this, we come down, they can't deal with it. They can't follow up on stuff because they're still dealing with heart attack victims and domestics, probably more domestics because now dad's home with mom.
With no power.
With no power. We open our emergency operations center up and we try to take all that responsibility on. But it's kind of a new shift in the mindset of folks. It was a huge improvement just from the Halloween storm, from the mid-October storm that we had, with the folks in the field calling us with what's going on, because we can't make it happen unless we know. But we can actually prioritize, and I did it. We had a call over in Prospect with lines on a car, and the original call came in with people trapped in the car and they had a medical issue. And we were able to actually divert a CMP truck from going to another call to that call. If it had gone by 911 to the call center in Augusta, to the call center in Belfast, to Rockland to Belfast, it would have taken a while. But we were able to make it happen pretty darn quick. So we're really working hard on building that relationship between the power companies and emergency management.
Yeah, you were talking earlier about radios into the classroom, into the offices and stuff. What's that gonna do to the frequencies?
Well, actually, what we're looking at is in the classrooms using those little Motorola $25 radios. And some schools already have those. And those radios actually work well inside of buildings because they're UHF, ultra high frequency. And they're cheap. And then they just came out a few years ago with a dual band radio. It's both VHF and UHF. Public safety is on VHF. So the principal can have this UHF radio talking on channel 1 to all the teachers in the classroom, or out in the back field, or wherever they're at. Change to channel 2 and then call dispatch. Or they can talk to the fire department because now they're on a VHF channel. Or they can talk to a bus because the buses are also on VHF. And we're looking at putting in a base radio in every school, every kind of far out school. In the case of Searsport, for example, you don't need one at every single school because they're all located within baseball throws and whatnot. They can talk to one another with a handheld.
Work together.
But if we have a base radio, low radio on power supply in the building with an antenna roof, then they'll be able to contact dispatch if the phone lines are down. And that was one thing that happened in Stockton with the hostage situation. You could not get a phone line in and out of Stockton, half of Searsport, and the comm center. Everything had to be done by radio.
How come?
Because every single kid gets on their cell phone, every single parent tries to get a hold of them, the governor calls, the Department of Health and Human Services calls, everybody's calling to try to find out what's going on, and the lines just go dead.
It was a hostage situation.
That was just a hostage situation. Nobody was actually injured. It was over with in like 20 minutes. If we had an actual active shooter at a school, telephones would not work in the county. We'd be on radios. So what we're trying to do is to build that radio capability so that if the teacher's evacuating the kids out the back door, they can let the principal know where they're at, what's happening. In that Stockton Springs hostage situation, the 5th graders were the ones that got taken hostage. The 4th graders were hiding on the other side of a partition wall from the whole entire incident, and nobody knew they were even there. the entire time. It wasn't until it was all over with and they're clearing the school that they found him. They did a good job of hiding. But if gunshots had gone off, that wall would not have stopped the bullet. But they also couldn't call anybody for help. Now, back then, there wasn't so many people with cell phones. And we still had phones jammed up. Matter of fact, the new policy came out with the comm center where when they get a 911 call in from something like in a school or something like that, they tell them, don't get off the line, keep the line open, set it off the side if you have to, don't hang up. Because you've got that line, don't lose it. Because you could hang up, the next time you try to call, you're gonna get busy.
One suggestion, I know it's a different world, but Connecticut I-95 going down towards New Haven.
Yep.
We used to put our calling numbers on top of our ambulances and fire trucks. We had so many bridges that you could be on the bridge and see who's going by if you couldn't hear them on the radio. And if you wanted an ambulance, there was a such and such a number, you knew an ambulance was there and where it was, and you can read it all ahead.
How many cross bridges?
Well, there's a lot down there, about every 2 miles. Yeah.
You have to get up in your tree.
Yeah. Get them in the tree stand and see it. Actually, it's funny because we got an old ambulance out of Litchfield that we're using as a radio truck. And a couple of years after we got the truck, we'd had it all painted up on the sides. We forgot all about the top. And we're climbing up to hook up a new antenna. And we're like, oh, this medical symbol still on the top of this truck, the big one painted on the roof. We'd forgotten that it was there. Because it's not an ambulance anymore, it's a radio truck.
When they're trying to set up triage, that's the stuff they want to know. It's another safety thing.
Yep.
If you lose radio coverage. Because sometimes you're operating on 2 or 3 frequencies.
Yep. But the one thing we have found is telephones during an emergency are almost useless at this point. And so we rely very heavily on radios. And we wanted to make sure that, because we've had several calls up to Mountain View. One of them was mace. The kid had set off and it got into the HVAC and spread all over the school, and everybody could smell it. Evacuated the whole school, and we spent 20 minutes trying to round up fire, police, EMS, and school officials, all of the key ones, all in the same place, because there was no communications and they were all scattered around. And so we want to make sure that we know that if there's an emergency, you go over to a certain radio channel, for both school and for fire and police, and we can link up and share information and make decisions on that. So.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Dale.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Natasha?
Well, I'm glad to be here. I thought I was locked out. I thought I didn't know which door to come in. I'm so used to having to come up this door or this door over here. So luckily my knock was heard, but I was like, is this a joke? Is this a nightmare? And so I'm glad to be here. It was a close call. So nice to see everybody, some familiar faces and some folks that I don't know all that well tonight. But I'm Natasha Irving. I'm the district attorney for Waldo County, but also for the entire District 6. And that includes Saginaw, Lincoln, Knox, and Waldo counties. So little spread out geographically, but I have the best police to with. I've got great staff across 4 counties. I'm very, very lucky. So our budget, so this budget, of course, represents 1/4 of my district, and there are a couple of small add-ons that I went over with one of my administrative folks in the office today to make sure we were asking for correct numbers around lodging, mileage, and travel and training lines. And so I'll go over those first quickly, unless somebody has another suggestion, just to make sure that these get requested. We're asking as a reflection of this year, of what's gone on this year for training, conferences, etc. I'm asking for an extra $90 in the Waldo County budget for training.
Which number is that, Natasha?
Hold on one moment.
5375.
Thank you. Okay, just move open to that.
So you want an additional 90?
$90, yep, 90.
So that's 90. Yeah.
Yes, and that's, so there was a registration fee for one of the conferences I just went to. It was called the PTAC conference, Police Training and Community Collaboration. I actually went with a cohort from Waldo County, including Jason Trundy, the Chief Deputy of the Sheriff's Department, Sarah Maddox of Restorative Justice Project, and Ashley Brown of Maine Health Equity Alliance. And this conference was the best conference I've ever been to, period.
Is this the one in Pennsylvania?
No, this was the one in Florida, in Ponte Vedra. And so the costs associated with this were hotel, which the sheriff's budget paid for my hotel, and they had a scholarship to pay. It's kind of complex the way this was all paid for, but so the sheriff's office ended up paying from their budget for my hotel room so I could be a part of this. There was a foundation sponsor of the conference that paid for my registration fee, which was $325, and my flight was $195. And we anticipate that I can probably get foundation funding, the $325 next year, but in case we don't, we didn't want to leave that without that request, so we go over that budget line. That conference, again, was a multidisciplinary team with police from across the country that are doing the really hard work fighting addiction and having extreme successes that we would like to replicate here. And we have, obviously, we went with the Sheriff's Department. That sentiment is held with the Sheriff's Department and with the police up and down my district, our district. And so it's something that, you know, you're either at the table or you're on the table, and we would like to be at the table. And this investment of $90 for that, I think, will be a really wise investment. The other, I also went to a conference in Pennsylvania. It didn't have any registration fee. It's called Innovations in Prosecution, and it was meeting with more prosecutors and some law enforcement with the same type of innovations in the actual prosecution of crimes and what's prosecuted and how. And that was in Pennsylvania, so that included mileage. I'm not sure why, but the plane tickets were extremely expensive, more expensive than the weeks prior and the weeks after. And I believe it was because it was the day after the election, but I'm no travel genius. So I ended up driving this year, and then that may be what happens next year too. We're asking for an additional $290 in travel and mileage. So that would be to cover a plane ticket to go to Florida next year, whether that's myself or one of our other prosecutors, and mileage possibly to and from if there's a drive to Pennsylvania again. And lastly, we're asking for an additional $250 in the lodging line. Lodging is 4115, and the travel line, I'm sorry, is 4105. So in the lodging, we're asking for an additional $250, and again, that is in the event that the sheriff's office doesn't pay for lodging in Florida next year, and if I go to the Pennsylvania conference again next year, or if there is another type of conference that we think that we should be a part of, whether it's myself or one of our prosecution staff. So we think that, yeah, sorry?
So the mileage is 290, 290 added on.
250, oh, sorry, no, you're right, yes, 250,
And the
290 added
lodging
on.
is the 250.
Yes, that's correct, that's what we're requesting. And so those are the only changes to this, to what you have. And would you like me to go over the changes in the budget, or would you just like me to answer questions? How would you like to proceed?
So we're looking at an additional 630 to your budget.
For these lines?
Items that you just gave us now.
That looks right, but I don't have a calculator in front of me, and lawyers would be doctors if they could do math. It's a joke, and that may be correct, because I can't do that math in my head. And you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Yeah. So.
I have a question for the commissioners. Is the line for the courthouse telephone internet, was that the one that we had requested a representative from the new courthouse to be present?
I think it is.
Okay, are they here?
No.
And that's my fault.
Okay.
I spaced that. I
Okay.
apologize. I don't know if we could have gotten them this at an evening meeting this late. But I'm gonna make a note to myself to see
There
if I can
was
get a
some
hold of them.
investigation on it, and what we received back for information, we were satisfied. It was, actually, the numbers that had been given before was a big mistake. I mean, it was not those numbers.
Well, we received lower numbers,
Right.
but I think we're still looking for clarification as to
Right.
why the difference was so significant. Oh, you're right, Josh, I apologize.
I thought the clarification was they already have internet, and why aren't they letting our people on the internet? And why are we paying an extra internet connection fee of
Yeah.
$4,000 when they already have
But we-
internet there?
We received some information.
You missed that, Natasha, it was really unfortunate, because
Um,
that's a really good point.
over in the
It's
new
true.
courthouse.
Why
We're
we
not
have to
on
pay
the
for
state.
these
And I'll
things
tell
that-
you, Felicia and Megan have done a lot of the legwork here, and when I'm listening to these conversations about this, as somebody that does my budget, my household, I find this.
Offensive.
Yeah, and the other issue, that there is, internet at the courthouse, why would we be paying this
No,
enormous amount,
right.
considering that we're next door to the court? So my understanding was there was an investigation that was gonna be conducted. I still think these numbers, so the number for the telephone and internet was $4,440. That seems very high. And if you look at the difference in this year's budget versus last year's budget, I think a lot of that is eaten up by the new court costs. And we're really, it's a great courthouse. I go over there and do work when I'm working on dispositional conference days or trials. Trials over there, it's great to have that space. But I will say that the internet and phone, it does seem out of whack. I understand if we have to pay a lease, we have to pay a lease. I guess that's how the world works, but the internet and phone I did find offensive, but I think that is less than, I think at some point we were looking at the $7,000 range, somewhere around that. So this is better.
Yeah, it was knocked down, I believe.
Yeah.
And, but again, I think we need some.
We'll continue, Josh, to get an answer.
And that's for one office.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
for the new
our
DA's
office suite is basically, you use a card access to get into the door, and there's a long hallway, the table, and there's 2 actual offices and a bathroom. So it's smaller than this space. Yeah, it's probably a little bit longer, but it's not a large space. I think it's a great thing to have, but again, that's a lot of money now for internet and phone. Now, internet and phone, I will say, one of the important, there are a lot of, you can imagine the important reasons why we would have it there instead of running across the street. But that was my first thought, is like, if I had to pay this for my family, if this was my budget, my family had to make decisions about what we were gonna pay for, we'd be running across the street. But what's gonna be happening in the next coming years is probably in the next 2 years, is Tyler Technologies. There's a big shift in the court process with using basically online filing, and everything's gonna be done online for the courts, and we're gonna be integrated into that system. And so if we can't access internet while we're there, in a couple of years, this is something that has to happen in all courthouses around the state, and the district attorney's office has to have safe, secure internet connections to be able to do this work. But again, I find that to be a lot. I thought I paid a lot at my house. I paid $70 a month for internet. I was like, wow, do we really need internet? Which we do.
I think we can safely say we're going to continue to investigate and look at some answers.
Just touch base on that in the next meeting, see what the bottom line is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else, any questions? Yes.
So we're looking at ways that we can save money. 2 lines that I was looking at was the $48.35 postage and the $49.25 witness fees. If you look in the book, we appropriated $2,500. We spent $442 in 18, and so far this year have spent $170 out of a $2,500 appropriation. And then on postage, $48.35, $2,200 was appropriated. So far, $56.65 has been spent. In 2018, $631 were spent. So I'm wondering if we could safely reduce those 2 lines to something a little closer to what?
So postage, I don't have the same printout that you have. I have that, I do have that in 16, we spent $631, and then you're asking for $2,200. I know a little less about that, thank you, than I do about witness fees, which I can explain. That's, that doesn't seem right. I don't know how that could possibly be. The reason being is we have to send out discovery, and I imagine there's one case that would have more than $56 in postage fees. So I don't feel like I have enough information about that. other than, that just doesn't seem like it could possibly be correct to me. I don't know, I can find out from my staff about what's going on there, they will know, they'll have a good idea of what's. But the witness fee, yeah, so witness fees, let me explain witness fees. Again, if there is a possibility that this is not updated for a year, but this is the issue with witness fees, is that witness fees are used to bring a witness up. Let's say if we have a case like this in Lincoln County right now. A young woman had a knife put to her throat, and it was a pretty severe domestic violence, criminal threatening and terrorizing case. She lives in West Virginia, and we need to get her up here, and we need to be able to pay her fees as a witness and victim to get up here. So that isn't something that we see every day, but when it comes up, it's important to have the money in the budget. Secondly, the other witness fees are going to be expert witness fees. If you don't need one, that's great, but if you do, you're not getting out of it cheap. They're expensive to make sure that we have the witnesses that we need. So I think it's something that I completely understand. We've come in under budget. I think the reason we put it that high is that placeholder, when we have one of those cases that we have to get witnesses from away, we have to bring them in, that we would potentially have to prosecute a case and go over budget. But that is up to the budget committee as far as, I know is that what would happen is that if we thought it was a necessary expenditure, we would make the payment, we would call in the witness, and those are usually done at the staff. I mean, my ADAs would know what cases needed to be prosecuted, and what witnesses we had to bring up. And I wouldn't want them to make a decision on a violent crime or sex crime to not bring a witness because of that. However, if we were to go over the budget, that would be a lesson for the next year. So I would leave that to your discretion. It could very well come under budget, for the next 5 years, and then we might have a doozy. So it's hard to predict.
If you should go over, you can always zero, if you get to zero that line out, you've got your bottom line.
Exactly, and so that's what my understanding is with Waldo County, and that's why I think that we would do our job the way that, I don't think it would affect the way we would move forward on a case, except that I might alert, I'll obviously alert my staff, we're gonna go over that budget line, but if the budget committee thinks that that's appropriate, as long as you have that information from me, and you know that when it comes down to it, if I need to bring in a witness from away to prove a case, make sure our community's safe, or we get justice, and then we would be doing that, and we would just hopefully come in on the bottom line. So, and I think we have done that in years, so that's my explanation, and I would leave it up to you all to make that decision, obviously.
So postage is one that is questionable though, right?
I honestly, we have to send out, we have an obligation to send all discovery out. We send it in big packets. We have to do it. If we didn't do it, we would be committing constitutional infractions every day. So we do that, and these are case files, basically. So we're talking about this thick for
files.
Yeah, for a small file, you're talking about half a, third of an inch, and for a big file, we have some files that are literally boxes.
From what I was hearing is that it's quite a large amount, and looking at what Penny had said, was that this year you haven't spent that much. Is that right? And so maybe that's a line we have to look at.
What I think is that there's some sort of error there. I think that we've spent. I can't conceive that we haven't spent that money. And I've done budgets in other counties. We've spent that money. That's off the top of my head. $2,200 is about what we spend on postage. So I think that's a clerical error. I think there's been some sort of error and maybe we're paying it and then we don't send over an invoice until later. I'm not sure. And if Felicia or Megan were here, I'm sure they would have a better explanation of that. But what I do know is that every day I'm in the office, I see discovery being put together and being put in the mailbox, and having done it for my business before, sending out packets, that adds up pretty quickly.
So it is active though. I mean, you are doing it and all that stuff. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's what needs to be cleared up, is that you actually are doing it, and maybe the invoices aren't in.
That is my only guess, is that for some reason the invoices haven't come in or something like that, and I can check on that. So, but I'd be happy to look into that and double check. But if that is an error. Like, that is not how much we spent this year. We have definitely spent closer to the 2,200, I'm sure.
Anybody else? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Did we use some of the figures that they were, I think, was the figures that we talked about, kids. Some older than, oh, that was bringing it down too. So it might not be left.
But again, even I
Hello, everybody. I'm Lorraine Brown from the Creative Coalition that serves all of Waldo County. And you've supported this cultural planning process before. We're now at 3 and 4, where we're planning for long-term success and identifying local priorities. The arts bring in over $8 million a year to Waldo County. When you do a cultural planning process like this one, that triples. So what happens is that you go out to, and I think some of you know this, so I'll make it short. You go out to communities throughout the county. You hold public hearings, and then you put out surveys all over the county. You identify local priorities and local resources, and then a plan that's all gathered. A plan is made, and part of the plan and part of why we undertook to do this is then resources are identified outside the county and outside Maine, sometimes inside the county too. But the plans bring in money to fund what has been identified as local priorities. So that's really, at least from we didn't undertake this plan when I was here initially, but that to me is the reason to do it. That it builds on what we have, it brings more resources. So, however, it is not a cheap process, and we spent $20,000. That's not including staff time. That's to get the data analyzed. It's to get, and I would like to say that we got great results from Searsport, from Stockton Springs, from Unity. We had some people in Unity just going out all over the place. Really getting enthusiastic about this. So we're at, once again, we're at number 3 on this. I put these benches there. And we're about to enter the final phase. And when we get to that phase, and the data is analyzed from all the questionnaires and surveys that have gone out, when that data is analyzed and crunched, it's identified where we might get resources, then we hold another series of public meetings and let people know about that, and then start supporting them and going for those resources. So I am asking that you support that process with $1,000.
Go ahead. Lorraine, so when this planning process is complete,
Yeah.
do you generate a document?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a document generated, and it specifies, it builds on what local people have said they are interested in happening, or what's already happening that they'd like to build on. And then it says, here are ways that you can get this funded, that you're not currently getting it funded. So that's the part that interests me. There are ways you can get this to happen once you identify it. There's a document. And we're paying for it. So, yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
So would this be just like a one-time increase, or do you foresee it being in the same thing going here on out? So are we increasing the budget by 1,000 this year just for the study?
Yes.
And it could go back down next year?
We wouldn't ask for this again. This ends the.
This would be a one-time additional.
Yes.
This is the end.
Yeah.
Any
It's,
other
it has specific costs, beginning, middle, end. We're right at the end of we're between 3 and 4 on this. we're entering that phase where that document, the data gets analyzed, the document is generated, and then we go back around to the different places in Waldo County and say, okay, here's what happened, here's the results, and here's what can we do together?
Is this the right time to ask the commissioners why they're recommending 1,000 instead of 2,000?
I can answer that if you want me to.
Sure.
We received $10,000 grant, so we had to match. And so this is the process that we've been doing, trying to raise the money. Right now, we're about 1,500, 1,500 to 2,000 short. So we're asking the county for $1,000 to end this. And then the study is completed, the surveys are in now. Now they're analyzing it, and consultants will finish it, get the report out. So it's kind of an end thing, but it was a matching grant that we had to match. And we struggled to get the money for this.
I mean, not everyone loves surveys. But I think the reason to do this really is that it will, we've been assured that it will help us to bring more money into the areas that people are identifying that they'd like to develop. So that's the excitement around fund. That's the reason to have it.
Any more questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Thank you very much, and thank you for all this work you do.
Next.
No, yeah, Mid-Coast Economic Development. Bill.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Seeing the time that it is this evening, I'll be brief and concise. My name is Bill Napower. I'm the Executive Director of Mid-Coast Economic Development. We are a designated economic development district which covers Saginaw, couple towns in Cumberland County, Saginaw, Lincoln, Knox, and 4 towns in Waldo County, which is Lincolnville, Northport, Searsmont, and Belmont. We offer a full range of planning services that runs the gamut from comprehensive planning. We typically probably do about 3 plans a year with towns, updates at this point in time. We do transportation planning, actually a considerable amount of ordinance revision, and on a regular basis, we do training for particularly planning boards, typically twice a year. And we also customize our trainings depending on town. Sometimes there's a big turnover in a town with a planning board, so we'll come in and customize the training for that board and things like that. So we're out typically in June and July. We try to hit after the March town meetings and June town meetings when there's potentially new board members on board. And we're currently going to be doing a subdivision training session. We'll do 2 more. We did 1 already. Since 2008, we haven't seen very many subdivisions around, so we're starting to see some activity. So we wanted to get some of our boards online. We're asking for $2,000 to augment the services we already provide to those 4 communities, and also the regional services that impact not just Waldo, but the entire region. Of particular note to this region is we're working and have been working for the past couple of years is identifying marine dependent sites throughout the counties, particularly for shipbuilding, aquaculture type operations. This came about as 4 years ago. We were approached with a boat with a boat builder looking for space to purchase land and build boats, and they needed deep water access, and they had particular size constraints. Surprisingly, we could not find a site for them for a number of reasons. First of all, that was wasn't outrageously expensive, or wasn't located within a residential area, which would not go well. And third, that was appropriately zoned for this kind of activity. It was kind of an eye opener for us that, we're right on the mid-coast. We should have all these spaces. So we started doing an inventory, and that showed us that, we need to pay attention to this if we're going to retain our traditional marine and shipbuilding job. We have a lot going on at Front Street right over here, which is great. And we have bits of hope in Thomaston and Rockland and in Camden with some of the boat builders there. But we're looking, there are opportunities for expansion, and we want to seize on that. So that's a project that would have an impact into Waldo County. The other two, affordable housing, we're starting to put together a regional group to start to tackle the affordable housing issue, but it has to be done regionally, town by town. People do here and there. Belfast does a lot of creative things, but there's still a lot more to be done. And then the other regional project is working on a trail connection regional. This is the 50-year plan on that there. We have a wonderful trail that connects from Belfast overland into Unity. And then we have a great trail system in Thompson, Bath, Brunswick, but then there's a gap in the middle. A lot of towns have trails, but there's no real connection. So the plan is to start working on making that connection. It's a great tourist draw and things like that. And then the last thing I would like to mention, well, last two things. We also do a loan program for businesses. We're not at the same scale as you are, the MDC, but we do basically what we call business builder loans, smaller businesses that don't have credit, don't have a relationship with a bank. So they would come to us, we would finance them, get them, what they need to, operate their business or expand their business or grow their business. And then at some point in time, they would move on because they won't need us any longer. They would develop a relationship with a bank. Most of our loans are within 25,000 to a max of 100,000, in this range on that. We sometimes, our success at that program is when they don't need to come back to us for a loan. They move on and go on. And sometimes our loan officer does too good of a job because when they, in the loan process, they, get them to, expand their business plan, et cetera, that they find they can go to the bank and get a loan without us. So we consider that a win also. And then the last thing I want to mention is that Waldo County and Knox County has lost the Mid-Coast Regional Planning Commission. I guess last night they just voted to formally dissolve. I know they serve, technically they serve 14 towns in this region for planning services. They've asked us to take over or be responsive to the towns both in Knox County and in Waldo County. So we would be available in those towns for planning services only on that. So, if they needed technical assistance or help with their comp plan or something like that. So our exposure going into Waldo will increase logically, because of that. What we won't do for those towns is you would handle the economic development portion of those towns. But the planning aspect, we would just take over from the regional planning division.
So help me understand, we have two development companies under advertising in our budget here. Help me understand what the differences between the two are. Why should we support two?
The coverage areas.
Yeah.
Coverage areas.
There was a time when this was all under discussion and there was a split, and a lot of that was negotiated with the state and the federal. The designation comes from the federal government, and so they had a hand in, they didn't force it on us, but it was the town that dictated.
Federal government.
Actually, I do have a question about coverage areas, and this affects Penny as well as in Unity and Freedom. We typically receive our planning services through Kennebec Valley Council of Governments. And since we're already paying the county tax and supporting EMDC as well as organizations, do you provide services and resources for our communities in Western Waldo County?
Well, no, we won't go into the KV Cog region because they provide both planning and The economic, they're an EDA district also, so they would supply that also. I used to work for KB Cog.
Okay, so, just to clarify this for me, right? So on the one hand, a municipality is paying county taxes to support economic development organizations that don't access. And then on top of that, we pay dues to KB Cog, which we do.
That's correct, yeah. Yeah, we ask all of our counties, Saginaw County pays the dues for the entire county, for all the towns in the county. Knox County is under discussion to do that. Right now, half of their towns are members of our organization, so they're discussing to pay the dues for the entire, for all the towns, like Saginaw does. That's just a decision. So you're kind of bifurcated. So that's why we don't ask for a great deal of money, but we use those funds to, community action people use the term, they use it to match and things like that. So that's one of the reasons we ask for something.
So what do you guys do for the town? I mean,
what do
like, no, I'll give you,
Sure.
I'll be blunt. I'm in Palermo.
Yep.
We get stuff from KB Cog. I just delete it because every once in a while they say, if you want to join us, it'll cost you $2,500 or something like that. And I don't see for our town a lot of benefit for that.
It really depends on the town. What we find is that the service we provide kind of goes, up and down. If they need a comp plan, we're there. We do a lot of grant work with towns. So lately, the culvert grants, we write culvert grants for communities. So you might get one here, shore and harbor grants if you're on the water. We do fire service grants with fire departments. They used to be pretty simple to do. Now they've gotten pretty complicated. So we have, we write those for towns. So we have a cooperating purchase program, ordinance work, the board training. It varies from community to community. Sometimes, a town doesn't need us for a couple of years, then all of a sudden, we're there,
Yeah, I'm
twice a
trying to
week.
figure out if I'm missing something. or not.
Yeah. Well, you might be. You may
be.
Yeah. They offer, KB Cog offers, similar services that we do. And I think somebody mentioned, you have to reach out to them to let them know. Or let your planning boards know. People, there's a turnover of people. They kind of forget sometimes that those services are there. One of the things we used to do was, Board of Appeals are like the Maytag repairman. They don't meet very often, but when they have a big thing going on, we get a call. Hey, somebody needs to train our Board of Appeals. They haven't met in 3 years and they have an appeal. So sometimes there's things like that. We're there if you need us. I'm sorry.
Do any of the 4 towns pay any dues to you?
Lincolnville does, right?
Lincolnville does. Now, if a town needs you to do a comp plan or grant writing, you also charge for those services, correct?
For the comp plan, yes, we will. They get a discounted rate, which is almost 50% of what we charge a non-member town. For grant writing, we will typically not charge a member town, but there are some exceptions. If we do a grant from Human Services, I have to charge because of just the amount of work, but anything else we don't. Like Northern Border grants, we obtained one for Lincolnville. We've been very successful in Knox County with those, and we don't charge for those at all.
Do you know off the top of your head how much Lincolnville pays?
I don't know.
Right now,
trying to
it's $900,
I think it's more than that.
Is it?
Yeah. It's 1,200.
Maybe 12,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
After a while, all those.
Right, oh, yeah, I know. And so for the other towns and also for a part of what Nickerville, that's why we asked 2,000 from the county.
We've done work in
Right.
Searsmont and
Right.
Northport.
And Belmont.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Hearing none. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
A little bit.
So
we take it. 39.
39. Yeah, because they were like sending us bills like 25.
Yeah, you're a little smaller
Yeah.
Ron, now.
I don't have time for that.
I'm set. Thank you. Oh.
You're negative.
Oh, yeah. I'm a nervous person.
Good evening. I'm Keith Neely, the facilities manager for the county. Lot going on. As Sharon said, we had a big move. We moved probate upstairs. We painted the entire floor up there. We put new carpeting down. We did a bunch of renovations. We installed a new phone system, IT, and then we rehabbed this area and painted out the commissioner's office in there. Just finished up Karen's office with paint and furnishings, new carpet. We reworked there was a couple of little small rooms in there, so we knocked some walls down. Getting the space, the old probate space over there, we've got a tentative handshake agreement with the tenant, so we're hoping to have them move in before the end of the year, so that's cool. We're going to paint that out for a couple of little minor modifications. All this work was accomplished with folks from the reentry center. I had over 1,000 man hours of help from those guys up on the night. Just tremendous amount of support from that project. The only thing it cost me is I bought them lunch, so I figured I painted the whole thing. They're crazy about steak subs from Jack's, so it got done with a bunch of steak subs. But I calculated up the other day 1,000 hours. So by the time it's done, we'll have painted 90% of the interior of this building. So pretty crazy. I was looking at the fuel figures, and it was curious to me because we started in November, it seems, with our January weather already. So last year we burned 15,275 gallons of oil, and this year to date I've used 14,797. I think it was in early January, Commissioner Shore came to me and he said, I don't like the way things are going in the Gulf. He said, we better look at getting a price locked in for oil. So we locked in at $2.16 per gallon. And I just checked the price the other day. It was $2.61 was the street price. So we're saving about 50 cents a gallon on that. Propane, we burned close to 5,000 gallons, 4,800 gallons last year. To date, we've used 4,169, and we locked that in $1.39 a gallon, which compared to street price, we're looking at $2.48 for propane. So that was a pretty favorable price on that. Pretty happy about that. If you look at my budget, you'll see that some things go up, some things go down. It depends. I've played around with the electricity a little bit. We weren't using the upstairs, so the electricity, we didn't have the usage up there. We're back up there now, so that gets adjusted. I've been slowly, the comm center used to be a real draw on the electricity budget, but for some reason it's steadily decreasing there. Whether it's the price or their usage has gone down. I think it's probably with the digital equipment, you don't see as much of a draw as they used to back.
LED lighting.
Yeah, and LED lighting. That's one thing that I've been going around the county. The 4-foot LED bulbs now are pretty favorable price on those. So I've made a program, replace all bulbs upstairs are all 4-foot LED. These U-shaped bulbs are like $8-9 a piece for an LED replacement, so they're not real. It's not cost effective to replace them, but I'll figure something out to do with that.
You can capture some efficiency main funds with that, right?
Yeah, I typically get rebate from them, and I got rebates coming for these heat pumps that we put in. We supplement. In Karen's office, there was only one small window. There was no AC in there, so we put that heat pump in there for AC, and she uses it for heat as well. So it's pretty cool. A little bit of electric heat just to warm it up in there. I guess the next big thing is after I get this space over here ready for rental, then Superior Court, I'm going to make some changes over there. We're going to, the DA's office is going to move some office around for better security and whatnot. So I've got to make some changes over there. But I'm still waiting for your suggestions on what to do with that courtroom upstairs there. So it's really doesn't lend itself to a lot of usage. There's Commissioner Shorey and I have tried to figure out what would work there. It's a 40 by 60 space, 27-foot ceilings. So
It's magnificent.
Yeah, it's
beautiful.
It'd be a great performing arts center, but I don't think Belfast needs another one of those or an art gallery, but maybe. So we'll see, what happens down the road with that. We'll have to put our heads together and try and figure out a good usage for that space. But it's just, we back the heat down as much as we dare to, and it's got a boiler half as big as this room, and it's steam heat, so it's pretty crazy to try and adjust that steam heat down. But we keep it at 60 degrees up there. Best we can do. We've got I've got programmable thermostats in all the buildings, and those set back to 62 at night and weekends. So 4 o'clock the temperature goes down. So we do what we can to save energy, and the LED thing is pretty cool. I swapped all the bulbs out in the comm center. I remember about once a week I'd have to go up in the conference room and there'd be a bulb out, and I'd always be changing the old fluorescent bulbs, but with the LEDs, it's been pretty decent. Any questions on any line items in the budget?
Yeah, I do actually. Lines 4628 and 4633, those are the cleaning lines.
Yes.
These are the contract services, right?
No, we had such a time with a contractor that we went and hired an employee now to do our cleaning. So.
Because you went way over budget in 2018, right?
Yeah, that was outfitting the areas with vacuums and all this equipment. We went through in 3 or 4 years, we went through 4 cleaners, some quit, some never showed up. So we decided that we would hire an employee, and he's worked out well. I've had nothing but favorable results. And I think that those line items will settle down when we figure out supplies and equipment. He's outfitted with equipment, so I think that will settle down. Yeah.
You mentioned possible tenant moving in there. Will we be supplying the heat, or will they be paying for that?
No, we've factored in that the heat and the electric, because the electric's not metered for that space, and so I think when we talked about our square footage price, I think we've got a decent price that will cover the cost of heat and electric for that space. So what we're trying to do is recoup some of that money that we lost from the rental space upstairs, and we're hoping to get a little portion of that back. Yeah.
Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well on.
I don't want to start our discussion on, in a negative tone, so I'm going to use the word challenges. 2019 brought the same challenges to us as 2018 and brought, and that is staffing personnel, keeping them, training them, hiring them. We came into 2019 down 4 positions. Some of the people that we hired to train didn't finish the training. One left and went back to North Carolina on the side. The business was not for him, so we hired other people to train. I lost an experienced dispatcher to a daytime job, Monday through Friday, no nights, no weekends, no holidays. She's a single parent. I lost another experienced dispatcher to Bangor Fire Department, which was a dream of hers always, going to be a paramedic firefighter. I lost another experienced dispatcher, because she wanted to go back to a big job. The night job wasn't doing a health insurance. So we're still down to November 2019. We're down 2 people. We have 2 people training that have been training for about 2 months. Training is typically 16 to 18 weeks. But we're a whole lot better off than we were in June as far as staffing goes. We had 1 family medical leave that was out the first part of the year and then came back and has been out of it. So I don't have a magic wand like no other 911 center does in the state. We're all in the same boat. A national study came out today that does not give us a favorable outlook in finding people to do this job. As I say, it's nights, weekends, holidays. It can be very brutal. They're recognizing now that dispatchers suffer PTSD as much, if not more, than police officers for the type of job they have. We have a great staff up there that's well trained. The state demands that we train them in 5 different disciplines. They do not charge us for the training that they do. We have to pay the mileage over and the other expenses over. And then with the vacancies, of course, we're filling overtime. Overtime budget went way over this year. Last year, as I said to the commissioners, I naively cut the budget $20,000, thinking we'd have a better year than we did 2018, and we didn't, because of all of the dice. This year, I put it back up, thinking is next year going to be any better. The commissioners decided that they were willing to roll the dice, cut the overtime line back down. Hopefully, we'll be okay if I can keep everybody I've got, so I don't lose anybody else. Then I think we'll be all right as far as the overtime goes. But I can't predict it. I have no way of predicting it. But as I say, I don't want to paint a negative picture because things are going well. Otherwise, up there, as weather gets bad, we get busy.
Dale alluded to the windstorm of a few weeks ago. We were extremely busy for about 6 hours. We were able to pass the calls off to Dale's staff, who took care of CMP for us. So we didn't call CMP, we didn't follow up on it. So we primarily took the 911 calls as ready to call. We're not unique, but there's some centers that don't do everything that we do. We don't take just 911 calls, we take all the calls for both SPDs, we know the calls for Waldo County Sheriff. So, you know, we have up to 35,000 calls a year that are not 911 calls, along with the 30,000 911 calls. We service all of Waldo County in one way or another. The only fire departments that we don't have is Victorville, so we transfer that down to Knox. There's a lot of technology changing coming that we haven't had to face yet, but we will have to face it in another year, I think. What the sheriff talked about with call sharing, we don't know how that's going to affect us. Somebody's going to take those calls. Right now, DPS Augusta takes them, and if it's for them, they keep them. If we take them, then we pass them on to DPS Augusta. I don't think we're going to be doing that much longer, as the sheriff said. We talked enough about how that affects us. The full staff, it's not going to affect us that much. I think we'll go away. We're talking 2,000 calls, and I think we can handle that. Training line, 2 years ago, we moved everything into one line for training. Asked for an increase in that next year. I took 500 of that out of travel line, put it into that. But there are a lot of required educational, continuing education classes for dispatchers. We had a series of classes a month ago that I didn't send anyone to because A, we couldn't afford the overtime, and B, we couldn't afford the expense. But they're mandated 36 hours every 2 years in 2 different disciplines. So, as I say, we're busy for 100-hour side. Technology is always changing, and we keep up on the technology as it changes. Tower sites this year was up. The bulk of that was one of the people that we pay rent on did not bill us for 3 quarters of 2018. I missed it because they sent us an invoice. So we paid that in 2019 along with the 2019. Most of them we have set up on a basis of, I cut the invoices and Karen puts them out as they need to go out for them. We may talk to them about doing that for them. That plus we had snow plowing at the Frankfurt site is very expensive. Not a remote site, but it's a nasty site to get to. All up hills, not a railroad, more of a trail. So that was out. Plus repairs and power sites were up. We chased what I call a lot of ghost complaints. This isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. Is it not working all the time? No, sometimes. So we send a tech out and they check it in. We did do a major alignment on one of the frequencies this year. So anything that happens at the power sites come out of that budget. Anything that happens to radios on Congress Street or Mill Street comes out of the radio repair budget. Questions?
Anybody have, go ahead.
I've got 2 questions. What is critical testing?
Critical call testing is a testing that we took on 2 or 3 years ago and test candidates for their comprehension and ability to do the call and to multitask the call. I have to say that we have never lost a trainee on any of the bases that we did them from critical as part of the hiring process. It's used pretty widely across the country, used pretty widely in the state.
Okay. And then the second question is, I just want to confirm the commissioners are actually recommending, is it 25,000 for overtime, not 40,000?
25.
Okay.
No, he was requesting 65 and they dropped it to 40.
So we fought, we went to
Yeah,
40.
yeah, they cut 25.
Yeah, we went
They
to
didn't
40.
cut 40.
With the 40.
Yeah, went.
Any other questions? You took 35, somewhere around 35,000 calls that were not true 911 calls.
Those are just plain.
Do you have an area that's a nuisance area?
Say that again, please?
Do you have an area that is a nuisance area, like my dog is nuisance?
No.
Yeah, stop calling that.
It's any call that the public deems as a 911 call. And then, of course, as I say, when the center was set up, we took on all the Belfast lines, Belfast PD, Belfast ambulance lines. And we also took on the sheriff's lines. So we answer 2040 and they're ring down. We answer Belfast 2420 and they're ring down. That was part of the original agreement when we came into the center. And we also pay those bills because the thought was that we control the phones now. They don't. So we pay the bill on that. That's about $1,200. I guess I'll have to go back and figure that out. I guess it's $1,200. That's part of the original resolution that built the center. I talked to Jim Arsenault a year or so ago as to what it would be involved if we got rid of those lines and had everything. But some of those lines we use for our own purposes, incoming. So we couldn't save a lot of money by getting rid of them. Plus we'd have to do an advertising job with phone companies. The other thing is Dale alluded to, with the proliferation of cell calls, many people in this room can remember a life without cell phones. We used to get a single call on an event. Now we get 7 or 8. A bad car accident, a bad fire. We verify, is this? Yes. Is this? Yes. And most of our 911 calls are now cell calls. 77% of them are cell calls.
How do you man like your second shift? 9 o'clock at night, how many people you got in there? People jumping on it?
3 normally.
3?
3 normally. We have 2 people from 0-100 to 0-700. And then we go to 3 people. We have 4 911 lines. We have a 5th position that we have manned before during the busy times, but we don't have 911. We have everything else, we have radio and computers.
There was a, way back, 911, long before you guys were 911. In another life of mine.
Yes.
That the system they had set up was 2 would man the switchboard, 2 would be the 911 people. If there was a I-95, if there was a real fun out there on Friday night, Saturday night, too much to drink, for fun, you'd call your other dispatcher. You guys ever thought, I think of Waldo, they're not getting the volumes thrown at them, and there's 3 people on it. You ever thought of running with 2 with 1 on call? That's probably not.
We started from the beginning, that's the manning that we have. Rarely are we overmanned. When you get a major event, everything can be going really great. When you get a major event, like a major car accident, which involves police, fire, ambulance, there's structure fire, police, fire, ambulance. They're all multi-disciplines. When it hits the fan, it hits the fan. And as the article said today, if you can imagine someone not answering that call when you need that call. And there's a liability to us meaning the county. If we miss a call and something really bad happens, we cut back. That's why we're very reluctant to run short. Because I can see the scenario now, as you just asked. How many people do you normally man? 3. Well, Mr. Smith, how many people did you have on it 7 o'clock on the, probably at 2 when we shot. Why did you do that? A huge world of liability. And sure, sometimes in the middle of winter, do we have one too many people? Yes. But we have to guarantee people a standard shift. We don't bounce them around except our floaters. And we haven't had a floater for years. Because when you have 2 people out, you no longer have any floaters. One of our floaters is now being used to cover 30 hours a week to queue. We have to queue 200 calls a month, 100 fire, 100 medical. And we've got one person doing most of those and another person doing. So one of the floats is covering her shift. If we don't have one of the floaters, if we don't have a float.
Anybody else have any questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Owen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen, you coming on?
You want me to go down there or
Speak loud.
speak loud? The 1025 budget, the only increase is in the salary lines. But I was going over my appropriation report, and the travel line of 4,100, I want to drop that to 700. I've only used 96 this year, but we have 4 treasurers meetings a year, and we haven't had 2 of them this year, so I haven't had to use the mileage. And there's only 1 more this year, so I'm not going to use a whole lot. That was increased a couple years ago, and the most I've ever gotten is like $699, which was in the year 2018. So I want to drop it back to 700. So that's taking 500 out of it.
That gonna be it?
And that's going to be it for the 1025 budget, unless you have any questions.
Questions on what you just went over? Hearing none. You got the audit, you got 1090, 1095, 2000. Want to finish the rest of them?
The audit, we keep at 9,000. 2018, it came in at 7,100. I don't expect it going up anymore, so we could drop it back to 8,500, or I don't know if I'd quite go 8,000, because I don't know if it's going to go up for when they do this 2019.
So you want to cut that 500, Karen?
Yep.
So the audit's going to be cut.
4,000 contractual services.
So he's at 8,500?
That's right.
Do we have a contract with the auditor?
We have Brantner. When I contact him and say I'm ready to do my audit, he will send one. And it's roughly, because we split it with the jail, a certain portion of it goes to the jail. So we roughly pay 10,000, but a portion of it is the jail part of it. So last year they paid 4,000 something, and then we paid the 71 on, well, not, yeah, for this year.
Yeah, I guess the thrust of my question is going forward in preparing next year's budget, could we have a contract on the very yes?
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. So going forward, we know we have an audit coming.
Yeah.
We have an auditor, the audit. We can budget that exactly.
Yes, we can. I was just going from what was done previously in years, and as I'm getting a look at it, because the previous treasurer had a lot to do with the budget, and this year it was me, so I was kind of like following suit. But the more I look at it, I can find some savings. So that's what I was trying to do.
Savings are good.
Yes, they are.
Debt service, 1095.
We have no debt, so that budget's zero.
Interest,
Interest, I increased it a little bit because this year we're gonna go over. Dave had wanted to keep it at the 15,000. We split it with the jail. This year, I'm looking at, the county's probably gonna end up paying 25,000 and the jail will pay 25,000. We are gonna be over, but I've been told that interest rates are dropping. So I think next year, if I don't increase it to 20, I did that on the jail side, we should be all set, because this year we're paying 2.56 for our interest on our TAN. And I've been told that the interest rate should drop a little. So we should be in the safe zone if I did just a little bit extra than the 15. So I put it at 20.
And at 20, that includes all of the.
We go out for our $5.3 million TAN, and we only borrow what we need, so we only pay the interest as we go.
So this $20,000 includes all of the setup that's around that tax
Yes.
anticipation.
Yeah. Tax anticipation, yeah. And I won't know what that is until December, what the rate is. Because they don't like to do it too early, because they really want us as close to January 1st when they calculate it, because we can't do it until January for the loan work. So I'll get a confirmed figure in December of what our interest will be. And then we sign on it in January. So I'm hoping.
2045 reserves.
1045.
2045, isn't it?
Oh, the benefits?
No, reserves.
Yeah, it's severance.
2045, okay.
The only one that we ask you folks to fund the last few years has been our severance line.
Oh, that's right.
Employee benefits, 2025.
The main PERS, the FICA, and the retirement are all based off of the salaries for the whole county. Barbara, you work on the workers' comp, right?
Yes, the workers' comp is a quote that we obtained from Maine Municipal Association, who we have our workers' comp through. And we've had a couple of tough years with some injuries and that sort of thing on the job. And so that was the quote that they gave us, and I believe it's probably pretty accurate.
What's the workers' comp look like? I mean, when do we anticipate this going down?
It's a 3-year look back, so as each year rolls on, 2 years from now, it would be gone, hopefully. We've had some really good years. It just it's unpredictable.
Everything in there is going up 200,000.
Pardon?
Everything. Employee benefits is going up 200,000.
Yeah, health insurance and workers' comp.
When we studied, or I guess we studied it one year and then we finally did it with the health insurance where we became self-funded per the recommendation of the budget committee. I almost think that you might have been on the committee and helped us do a search, but prior to that, and we've been self-insured for what, 9 years?
It's 2008.
Yeah, since 2008. In 2008, the last year that we had Cross health insurance or Blue Cross Blue Shield or whatever through Cross, that many years ago, we were paying 1.2 million was what we were asking the budget committee for. And, folks, I'll put myself out there because I've argued with these two fine commissioners that I work with. Because year after year, I think we've almost undercut ourselves because we've been trying to keep it down and not have an increase. And sadly enough, all you need is a year or two that
like we had.
kind of whoops you. So unfortunately, that's why we're here asking for what we are. I'm still proud to say it's not 1.2 million, which is what it was 10 years ago, but, we've done a hell of a job. We've got a hell of a program. And employees have probably some of the best benefits. I challenge anybody around. But that being said, when you are the actual insurance company, which is what we are, being self-funded, you know.
And what we forget along the way that 3 years ago, in each year, we went back 50,000, then 100, then 150. So in those 3 years, we cut $200,000. Give us a bad year on expenses, you'll see where we are.
Well, that's what I mean. We should have, maybe we should have.
Left it right there.
Gone for more.
What do the
I
employees,
said so. Told you so.
I mean,
what do the employees pay?
Portion of their health insurance, is it
15%.
15%?
15,
Which is
105%, over 3 years, it hit 15%.
Yeah.
5, 10, and 15.
And they have deductibles and co-pays.
Yeah,
And that's for a single employee or that's for the
That's
family?
That's
for
a contract
across the
penny.
board, single, employee, child.
You guys hiring?
Yeah, no kidding, Brian.
Oh,
One thing about keeping those rates at that level, the county, the plan is able to stay grandfathered. There's significant savings in keeping it in that position. And so that's one of the bigger reasons for not having increased the employee portion at this point. If we stay under a certain level, that grandfathered
We lose the
status.
grandfather status if we change certain things according to some of the Obama plans and everything else. So we have to be very careful what we can add, what we can.
This makes it easy to retain employees, though.
Truthfully,
Yeah.
Truthfully, it is probably some of the best coverage you'll ever see. Hands down.
So what's the retirement annuity match? How's that structured?
That is specifically a 457,
Sure.
and the
That's like a
county,
403B, right? No?
it's a 457, it's its own, I couldn't comment on what it's similar to, but it's a retirement, basically. Employees are encouraged to be putting money away and not using it like a bank account, taking it out. And the county match, which has been this match for years, is $600 a year. However, if the employee is enrolled with Maine PERS, there is no match because by law, the county has to put a match in.
Okay, so
Maine
that's why
PERS.
this number's so low.
Exactly, yeah.
What about, get out of this here. The commissioners, 1020. Barbara, were you gonna speak on that?
That's up to the commissioners.
What are your questions, sir? I don't believe.
12% low, is it?
I was gonna say, I think our budget decreased. Our budget actually decreased.
It didn't decrease.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, $2,000.
Oh, wait a minute.
1020.
36 to 34, okay. I'm looking at the whole book. You didn't decrease. Any questions on that part?
I think I was working on a question for 4735. The increase on the employees' benefits.
Right.
How did you guys come up with the estimate for this year for 356,000?
There are 3 different stages with Maine PERS. They've just changed their rules. We have the 2C plan, we have 65 and 60 and 65 plan. So the county is paying 3 different rates for Maine PERS. And next year, the sheriff's department's going to 3C, so there's gonna be a 4th rate. So, and right now, it's 10.2, 10%, 12 point something, which is gonna jump to 13% that we have to pay. That's Maine PERS rules for anybody contributing to that retirement.
That's pretty mandated, right?
Yeah.
No, it is. It is what it is. They just tell you what it's gonna
Is it
be.
mandated, who sits on which of those tiers? Which type of employee sits on which tier?
2C is the sheriff, which is gonna go 3C, the jail is 2C, and then the rest of the county, depending on when they started, whether they were put in the 60 or the 65 plan.
Is that negotiated or is that?
That was all done through Maine PERS and the legislature. We had no say.
Good, okay.
Yeah, they control all that.
Any other questions?
Let's set the next meeting date.
Oh, but we did have one thing that didn't get brought up in the whole list for tonight, and that was 2040 records
Oh, yeah.
preservation.
You're right.
You're right.
Yeah,
Did I miss that? Didn't make it on the
Good
agenda.
eyes, Vicky.
Oh, that would have been
Good
my
eyes.
fault.
Oh, yeah.
It's not even-
It's huge.
Oh, 20.
Just want
No,
to.
that's reconciliation. I don't have to.
And then if you look at,
What drove?
There was damage. The records that they had to preserve, so they de-acidified and rebound.
That's become almost a minute.
I thought you put them in.
I'm sure it does. And then
Barbara,
Yeah, I'm sorry. What was the
you want to
question?
speak to records preservation?
Was the question why it was so
Yeah,
much higher
why?
this year? A couple of reasons. The county, you may recall, had the old jail and then the former sheriff's office had a lot of work that they did with the Brownfields grant to take care of hazardous materials. So that the archive has been, it's not finished, it's getting there. It's taken a little while, but that is going to become a permanent records storage and archival storage for county records because it's been a challenge to have them in a place where they should be and being handled the way they should be over the years, just from lack of space. So we did have a situation in the old sheriff's building. Not all of the records had been moved out when they moved to their new location on Public Safety Way, and pipes broke in the middle. The power had gone out or something. At any rate, the pipes broke. Those records got wet. The sheriff at the time did what he could, but where they ended up being stored, they just continued to degrade from there. So we're in the middle of taking care of that. We're hoping that won't be as expensive as we might fear, but the thing is the county has to follow the main archive rules about what they preserve. And there are some measures you can take if records have been damaged, if they have to be retained for a period of time, which a lot of these do. But we've had a company that went in and helped because there was mold, and you have to be very careful with mold. That company went in and was able to take pictures of the boxes to find out based on what was written on them what they are, and we're hopeful that a lot of that was already past or getting very close to where it needed to be. Go through the proper disposition schedules. We follow the same schedules for retention as the state of Maine. So part of the cost here is anticipating there may be a few records that have to be freeze dried and have remediation done with the mold. We're hoping there won't be very many. The other pieces to this are just to simply start putting that archive together. Shelving, we've done some pricing on shelving that would hopefully provide a few units to get boxes and get them started in there. Really bare bones. We tried to keep it as low as possible, and this is going to be a long-term project. It's not something that will happen all at once. Currently, the permanent records are that have been put in a archival system are up in the Superior Courthouse, and they've done well there, but we're running out of space. So it was a great opportunity to use a wonderfully suited building for this purpose. The bones of that building are incredible. It was like a blank space once they took out the old jail pieces. So it's just big square space, perfect to put records in. And so it'll be a long-term thing, but this was to get it going.
So do we have estimates from any companies that do this work?
Yes, and it depends again on the damage. So, and whether or not, once I've gotten through all of the list, it is now at the point where I can send it to the state of Maine and be relatively convinced that it's really, really accurate. And once they've determined that if they will allow us to go ahead and dispose of those records, then that will be, that is another thing that will cost a little bit of money. You can't just put moldy records in anything, so, but not terribly expensive. So we're still at the not sure stage, but hope, thinking this will give us what we need to take care of it and get started.
And just to clarify, so the pipes burst in the new public safety building?
No, the old sheriff's
The old
office.
sheriff's office, okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I think next thing we gotta do is come up with a date for the next meeting. Can we stand another Friday night?
Okay, so that's.
Everything else I'd rather.
Yeah, you can find everybody's available.
Mr. Chair, if I
We've
may.
done Saturdays before.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've hinted at that. So if I may, sir, the next Friday night meeting, will that be just another budget committee meeting, or is that the public hearing?
That's a public hearing.
That's- So it's gonna be 10 business days
Yeah.
from today if you want.
Actually, to be able to get it into paper, I need 14, just to be able to completely meet the letter of the law.
The letter of the law says 10 days, doesn't it?
Right.
Yes. That's all
You
I'm
have
asking.
14 days.
So
The
Penny's
working fast
going
time.
to Massachusetts for a big operation
Oh.
sometime at the beginning of December. We don't have a date specific yet. And then I'll be unavailable for 7 to 10 days. So I'm free the rest of the month except for Thanksgiving. And then-
What?
But after December 1st, I have no idea. But you can, life goes on without me too, so.
The 29th, that's right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's right.
Not-
That's
I don't think
Friday.
That's a good plan.
No.
Everybody's gonna be traveling and family in town.
Yeah.
That's Black Friday too.
And yeah.
And I really wanted to go shopping that night.
Really? Josh and Penny. So what about December 6th?
December 6th.
That's a Friday night. That's the first Friday. That gives Barbara ample time.
What time?
Yeah.
Oh, joy.
What date?
Any negative on? the
December
6th?
6th.
I will be here if I'm here.
That's the way to look at it.
We will conference call you in because Josh, I'm sure, will love the technology.
Figure it out.
December the 6th.
Yeah, what time?
Do you want to say 5 o'clock, sir? Look at how long this was tonight.
Should be that one, the next one, but okay. Let's,
Well, what do you,
5 o'clock, you folks are working, right?
5 o'clock is a
5
tough
o'clock is-
time for me getting off the ferry and getting here. I mean, like 5:15 or, it's just gonna be close.
okay, no,
I'll be-
whatever.
I'll be
I was
happy to
just
go
thinking,
with
I didn't want.
5:30? We moved it up to 5:30?
I'll be 5 or 10 minutes late at this 5 o'clock.
You wanna go 5:30?
Well,
Anybody?
Bill-
5:20, 5:20.
5:15.
5:20?
5:30.
5:30.
5:30. Great.
5:30.
December
Give
what?
them a chance to take a
December
break.
6th.
So Gabe, what happens? Because you missed the boat, like literally.
Which boat?
Just go home.
I'm getting a boat's picking me up.
So all he has to do is call him and say,
You're going to
I'm gonna get there.
advertise, Barbara, you advertising?
Yes,
Starting at 5:30 and followed by the yada official vote.
right.
Okay. You don't have to hang around out in the hallway, we'll move one through the other. You were given this is the, how much you spent. You should all have a paper like this. This is where each department stands. I think they do.
Yeah, it's,
That was my dad, who's never remembered my birthday once in 53 years. Besides tonight, he's gonna remember my birthday. And that's probably just what my sister reminded him.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.